Someone make it make sense.
Probably a couple.
Hello, how's everyone doing? Hold on, let me play my video. Okay, here we go. How's everyone doing today? On this Saturday, it is very much rainy here. I hope you guys are having nicer weather than we are having here. Let me cue up the music. As y'all know, I'm a desert squirrel. I like the desert, not the rain. Ah, so nice. So we have, oh, hi. Happy to see all of you guys here. Yay. On this Saturday night or Sunday morning or Saturday afternoon, depending on where everybody is. So we have a fun new little video here. Full of surprises potentially for y'all. Might take a little bit of paying attention. So yes, we do have Triple R Wifey in the house. And I know what you're probably thinking, this is like greatest opening statements, and this is not related to that. This is related to Murdoch, but you know what? It was just too good. I was gonna wait until the next Gloria video, and I couldn't help myself. So we're watching it anyway. Because we make our own rules here, you know. It's all good. I'm wondering too when people are going to realize what's going on. Oh, Jessica loves it when it rains. I'm so happy for you. I wish I could be like you. I wish I could be like that is great. That's so funny. Like my body does not like humidity. It doesn't like, I love swimming. Like if I choose to get wet, that's fine. Like I love swimming. That's great. I love drinking water. But I hate the rain. I hate the rain even if I'm not in the rain. If I'm inside and it's raining, I still hate the rain. But it's even worse if I have to go. Like I will really do everything in my power to avoid it, actually. DSN sees what's happening. Shout out to my friend DSN here. Yep, and we've got all the gang's all here, guys. Gang's all here. Oh, I forgot about the last part. Do you guys see the last part? Oh, the bulge. Oh, so many bulges. I forgot about that part. Oh, man. Hi, Candace. Happy to see you, as always. Oh, my God. Don't worry, guys. It's going to happen again. It's so good. It's my fave. Oh, my God. It's just hiding from behind the tree. What was it you were saying last night, Wifey, that was so fucking funny about the tree and the bulge? Oh my God, it was so funny. I like the trees having evil intent or something. Oh my God. That was so funny. Oh, great point. Great point. I'm gonna spew my water everywhere. I'm laughing. Just sneaking out. Oh my God. I don't know if you guys noticed. This time around, you pay special attention to the road trip crew, you might see a new face involved in the group. The original gang's all there, but there's another member to the road trip crew. So I don't know if you guys, I can't remember if I said it out loud or if I thought it in my head or put it in the Discord. But anyway, y'all know Iowa Backyard Cam, who's here a lot of the time. So they have it seems like it's a 24/7 situation, just filming all the animals in their backyard. But like I checked it out the other night, and they do it all the night and all the day, 24/7. Right, I already said that. So, but there's like the squirrels are plentiful and up close, and it's so cute. It needs to have a warning. And oh yeah, there should be the road trip edition in a sec, I think. Hold on, let me make sure. Did I include it? It should be there. Let's see. So yeah, so I think it might be after the children, hopefully. But yeah, so anyway, but they right, I know what I was gonna say. But they were using the same song, the night driving song. And I was like, night driving. And I think it was actually at night during their backyard cam, so it made perfect sense. If I forgot did you guys see it? Did you guys see it? Hold on, let me back up. I always give you guys hints. Let me back up. Okay. Pay close attention to the road trip crew and see if you guys notice the addition. They invited someone else along. Y'all. Oh God. Oh man. So good. I never did do It's a Guinea, but I feel like we all hear it in our heads, so it's okay. It's all good. Oh, it's Poot's head. It is most certainly Poot's head. There's this there was this live stream from it was pretty early on in the trial, I think, when there was like I paused it to talk or something, and like the court cams like zoomed in on Poot or whatever, and as I had paused it, and he was making the word like just the funniest fucking face of all time. And he actually said it on the stream. I was like, hang on, guys, I'm taking a screenshot, like as I was live, and like took a screen because I was the face of all time. And his head is like 4 times the size of an average man's. I know. It was like I wanted to make sure he could be. The game wanted to make sure he could be seen. But I took a screenshot of it and like I was like I saved it. I saved it so that I could do things with it later. That's what she said. Maybe, potentially. Triple R on fire. Yes. You guys, we were talking last night. Triple R and I were talking last night, and we had okay. Hold on. Let me pause the music. Wifey, do you know what's coming? Probably. All right, Triple R and I were talking last night, and you guys remember the song "Closing"? I can't. I don't know if I can even get the words out. Oh, okay, hold on. Do you guys remember the song? Do you guys remember the song "It's Closing Time" by Semisonic from like the 90s? And I was in like elementary school probably, and it's like, closing time, da 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 da. But then it's like the chorus is like, well, actually, that's not a good key for the chorus, is it? It's like, I know who will want to take me home. You guys know the song, blah blah blah. Or let me change the key. Closing time, da 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 da. Yeah, okay, that's better. I know who will want to take me home, blah blah. Okay, you guys probably know it anyway. It's not like I need to sing it. So I don't know what plans you're referring to, wifey, but I think you know what I'm talking about now. So oh, super classic, yes. So in case anyone was wondering, we did look it up, and that was their one-hit wonder, basically, except for this one song called Secret Smile. That's a whole other story. But anyway, so what did you guys, I don't know, y'all were probably, I don't know, we have various ages, I'm sure, here, but like, okay, so because of my age and weight, so I was saying how funny it was because at the time and up until recently, I thought with the song was about. And actually, I think Wifey finished my sentence for me before I could even say it, which was wild. Here's the question. Did any of you guys think it was about a pet shop? Except for Wifey. Did any of y'all also think it was about a pet shop? the Bulge battle. You know what? It's the Battle of the Bulge because they were saying, and then there it is, the Bulge, the two Bulges, the Battle of the Bulge. Who will emerge victorious? We'll have to wait to see. And there's two children vigilantes. So the question is also this: what are they going to do? How are they going to be involved? Are they going to remain joined forces, and are they going to pick which Bulge they're going to fight for, or are they going to split up? Like, and one goes on one side, one goes on the other. Exactly. Sad pet shop song where a puppy's looking out the pet shop window. Sad that people walked by the window all day, but nobody stopped inside to get the puppy. And that's exactly what I thought. And that's exactly what Wifey thought. And we both realized this last night. We were talking and it was like, oh my God. And we both thought that same thing. But here's the funniest part. I only recently learned that that's not what it's about. But Wifey didn't know that's not what it was about until last night when I told her that's not what it's about. But like, when you think about, like, seriously, you guys, like, closing time, I know who will want to take me home. Like, literally that song made me cry as a little child because I was so sad for the puppies in the window that nobody took the puppy home. And like the pet shop was closed and now the doggy has to stay there. I mean, like that song was like, I was always crying at the song. Yeah. So that's what I thought that for up until like, I think about 6 months ago, maybe I learned that it was not about that because somehow I had failed to ever realize that the words alcohol, whiskey, and beer are mentioned in the song. Had I heard that ever, I would have probably rethought my pet shop song idea. But yeah, that's exactly what it's about, DSN. Yep. Yep. But somehow, Wifey and I both thought it was about the sad pet shop. But here's when we got this idea. We got this idea for about like a show with like song lyrics where like songs that I guess, did we ever decide if it was songs we both had never heard or we had heard? But anyway, the idea is like one of us has lyrics to a song and have like the story behind what the song is about. And then like going off of the lyrics alone, like the other person, like who hasn't heard the song, going off the lyrics alone has to hear the lyrics and then like try to figure out what the song is about. Because we were doing this last night as a game and it was really fun. And it's actually pretty fucking funny. So anyway, if you guys are wondering, just in case you're like, what's this new hit show everyone's talking about? Like I don't even know what it would be called, but like the new hit show, like whatever, like just wait. You might hear someday, maybe the pet shop story will become, just kidding, completely fucking kidding. But it is a fun game with the lyrics thing, trying to figure out what a song's about just on the lyrics. So, okay. Happy Saturday to everyone. If I didn't already say that, I may have already said that. Oh yeah, the hurdle game. Yes. And actually we were talking about the different games. Yes. I have played the hurdle. Here's what happened with me in the hurdle. And also, have you done, what is it called? Framed, I think it's called. It's the one where they give you a clip from a movie. I think it's called Framed. Here's what happened with me in the hurdle though. I started just, okay. I don't know as many, like, oh, they got a winner in the Kentucky Derby. I'm trying to see if it's called Framed. I'm gonna look it up. So, yep, it's called Framed. Okay, Framed is like the Wordle but with movies. So anyway, with the hurdle, the thing is that, okay, she's like, I'm leaving for good and I'm never coming back. Boy, I just sounded like Joel, didn't I? It's a horse. Sorry, just I don't know. What did it say it was called? I just was trying to find the name of that game. Mystic something. Let's see. Mystic Dan. So you guys can look it up. It's Mystic with a K. Okay, good. We love you. So yeah, so the hurdle, the thing is that I have a strong aversion to 80s music with some exceptions, like being Rickrolled, for example, or 80s punk. Or there might be a few other exceptions, but like the 80s music that everyone thinks about that they know that they like, or not, I don't know. The 80s music that is like iconic, whatever, I can't. It's on par with Karen Reed's Face for me. Just no offense to anybody else who like it's just not for me. So we love you back, Jessica. So but like, your old school like punk or like, you also had some cool rock bands, but I'm not talking about your standard fare, right? So anyway, like, there was some cool like bands, like I think Led Zeppelin was still going strong through the 80s, weren't they? But like one of my favorite punk bands that's when they kind of originated. And I always forget that Sonic Youth also formed in the 80s because they were so ahead of their time. It's like you would think it was later. But anyway, love the Dead Milkmen. I know the Milkmen. I don't know the Dead Milkmen. And I was also thinking, man, I haven't listened to Minor Threat in a long time. I needed to brush up on my Minor Threat. But here's what I'm saying, though, the hurdle. So the hurdle, I found that with the hurdle, I just got frustrated because it was like songs I don't know. Like I am a musician. And what was frustrating was that like, how is it that with the hurdle every day, it was songs I don't know? It was like stuff like Justin Bieber or like Taylor Swift or 80s songs. It was like the only things I don't know. I guess also country. I wouldn't know any country songs. But like, anyway, it was like popular stuff, I guess you could say. And so that's awesome. Rock on. Love it. Love it. That's awesome. Yeah, actually, I used to have a red mohawk when I was in college, and wifey, Triple R here, had, I guess it wasn't quite a mohawk, it was kind of a mohawk, right? And she still has red hair, but love the blue. That's awesome. That would have been a lot harder for me, being that my natural hair color is brown. I guess your natural hair color is blonde, Candace, which works out for you. That's lucky. For peeps who want to do different hair colors and change them frequently, I highly recommend. I will put it in the chat. Redken ZQ. There should be DSN. The lasers should be there. They're just hard to see. But I don't know if I can add, like, I can add lasers with my imagination. Like, I can't, like, I could make another video. Like, I could add, like, I could take this and, like, try to make more lasers on it. But, like, I don't know that I can do that on the stream because I don't think StreamYard. Okay, StreamYard. Hey, StreamYard folks, if you're listening, because I know they listen to EDB and they take her recommendations. So surely they're listening to this, right? Ha ha ha. Like, StreamYard folks, if you're listening, please include an option while on stream where you can very easily add green lasers. Thank you. Oh yeah, there's guineas. Do you guys see the little chicken? I always, just like with the thumbnails, I try to make them not obvious. I mean, obviously, eventually it gets a little bit more obvious, but I try to keep it subtle, The chicken's so cute. The chicken, what I love about the chicken is also facing the same way as the bulge. Road trip crew. But yeah, Redken Shades EQ for people that want to have different hair colors without it being permanent is awesome. Because it's a demi-permanent and it's the best. It's actually better. It's actually good for your hair. That's a great point. You know what we've completely neglected? We've completely neglected you guys to appreciate the other tree. I am so sorry, other tree. This is such a great point. It frames the entire situation. And you know what is so crazy? Those two trees are identical, aren't they? Wow, that's insane. They're the exact same size? That's wild. How does that even happen? They're identical trees. They're like twin trees. And it frames the RV. But we've not even mentioned the other tree. Wow. I apologize to the other tree. I'm sorry. You can see, so you can hopefully you can see decent. There is a green lace. It's just again, it also kind of blends in with the grass, but like, yeah, still, StreamYard. We would love to have more green lasers available during the stream. Yeah, he did something. I mean, it's Murdoch Avenue, guys. It's Murdoch Avenue. So, you know, right. Good point. We can't be too critical, right? Because like nothing is perfect. It's a great point, DSN. Thank you. Nothing is perfect. I mean, the bulge, it's to be honest, I think it's a little off center because the bulge, right? The bulge, if it wasn't for the bulge bulging out, oh God. Oh, yeah. So, okay. So let's divide postmortem. Some little Russian for you. Um, blame it on the bulge is right. Absolutely. Blame it on the bulge. So yeah, so do you guys do hurdle though? I know I was it's a grower, not a shower. Exactly. I know I was talking about what my disclaimers for not doing the hurdle anymore. I mean, I gave it the old college try. I gave it so I do, as y'all know, I do the wordle, the worldle, and the loodle every day. And I got too annoyed with both the framed and the hurdle. But I did do them every day for like a month or something. And it was kind of similar thing with the framed where I was like, I don't know any of these fucking movies. So I don't know. But yeah. Oh, I'm sure. The mosquitoes. Oh my God. I mean, as we know, this is why Maggie stayed at Edisto because of the swamp weather in the summer. That is one thing, like, you will have the mosquitoes at the beach, like over here on the East Coast. Like, you will have mosquitoes, but usually it's not nearly as bad. And you don't have all the other bugs. Like, because we go to the Outer Banks every summer, and I only remember one summer where I even noticed a mosquito. It was like my entire life, every summer, I never even saw mosquitoes, but then there was this one summer where the mosquitoes were like the plague. And then that was it. It was just the one summer. But you're never going to have, I mean, you might have like occasional, I'm trying to think. Honestly, no. Never really have much of the bugs out there, but like you get them. See, because bugs, I've learned bugs like trees, they like grass, they like swamp. Oh, awful sand fleas. That sounds horrifying. Yeah, she was smart. Yeah, and I remember them saying in trial it was the biting flies. Yeah, that I have not met a biting fly, and I never hope to. Actually, I saw the weirdest bug here the other day, you guys. It was like 2 days ago, maybe. I don't even know. It happened so fast I couldn't even get a picture of it it like literally, and it was flying. I don't know what it was. I've never seen a bug like it. It was the weirdest thing. It was just flying like outside my window, and then it went over there by the tree in my front yard. It was the size of like a bird, and it looked like I don't even know. It was really weird. It looked almost like a couple different bugs stuck together. It was kind of horrifying. Hi, I haven't seen you in a while, Large, and happy to see you. You're probably quite confused at what's happening on screen. But if you are, just let us know. Someone will explain. But I'm happy to see you. Um, so yeah, but this bug was wild, guys. I don't know what it was. Um, it was a new one. Have you guys had the cicadas yet too? Because like that's a whole thing. Um, I've seen one so far here, but it's supposed to be cicada geddon. Um, are you saying that's which ones are the bugs? Which bugs are these? What bugs are these? Green sleeves, bugs edition. I'm happy. Oh, that's awesome. Great. Cool. Well, yeah. So, by the way, in case you're not familiar with this particular RV, the address of this RV is 307 Murdoch Avenue. Just so you know. Um, so we've had a lot of fun with all the deep diving on this. So, but yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the cicadas, yeah, man. Do you guys, well, I don't know. It's so gross. I don't even know if I want to say it. There's this whole story with the fungus. I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. Okay, like I have like all the notifications for shit turned off my phone. Typically, like I I get like the YouTube. Well, if YouTube sends them, right, I get YouTube notifications. But like news and shit, like I like try not to receive that. The weirdest thing has been happening for like the past month, where for whatever reason, and I got notifications. I've been getting regular notifications about Cicada Geddon, and then I got that one random notification about the Kentucky Derby. So like I don't know really much of what's going on in the world, but I know about Cicada Geddon. But all that to say is that like maybe last week I got a notification with an update on Cicada Geddon, and it was talking about this particular fungus that they have. Oh, it's really gross. As if they couldn't get any worse. Yeah, for sure. Roy V says, I don't want to live on Murdoch Avenue. I hear that everyone that lives on that road mysteriously died except for two red dudes. Yeah. Murdoch Avenue, where only the animals have a permanent roof over their heads. I guess you could, well, I don't know, the carport, I don't know. It's kind of in between, right? Like, I mean, it's not, well, it is on a slab. I don't know. It's like the doghouse, though, is like just way better quality. You know what I mean? Jerusalem cricket. Holy fucking shit. That sounds terrifying. Ugh. Oh my God. That sounds awful. I don't know why. Crickets aren't that bad, but when you add Jerusalem in front of it, now it just sounds like it's, I don't know. It sounds like it's a serious type of cricket. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Someday, you guys, we're going to have to meet up and do an on site field trip. I hope you guys know how to ride horses, because if we want to go explore Redbeard, the only way to do it is on horseback, from what I can tell, which is fine by me because I would prefer to take a horse in a car any day. But I don't want, I'm like, see, people are probably looking them up. I'm glad that I'm doing this because that means I can't really look them up. I don't, ugh. But you know, there's a bug. I'm not even going to say it because just saying it makes my skin crawl. There's a bug that I hate the most. I'm not even going to say it. Let's talk about horses instead. Yeah, I grew up riding also. Um, did you do English or Western? How did I know that you rode, wifey? That seems insane. But it makes sense. Um, yeah, we'll bring all the duct tape. It's fine. You'll be just fine. Yeah, I know. It will be, it could get a little dicey in there. Um, you know who might help us out though? You know who might help us out? There could be some 5'2" assassins lurking around nearby that we could potentially hire to protect us with their green laser. Remember, guys, they trained all their lives for that moment. They'll get to put their school skills to use again. Oh my God. Oh my God. They'll protect us, don't worry. Oh my gosh. Okay. So let me pull up, what are we doing first here? Right, crew. That'll be us, except we, instead of a tractor, we'll be on horses. Did you just now see the chicken, I don't think Jessica's come back yet. What do you guys think? Is Jessica going to come back? She said she was. I know, right? Yeah. And then the flag, everything about this is so incredible. And the fact that flag has that whole story. Oh, there she is. Look at that. Very good. Right on schedule. That sounds nice. God, I haven't had watermelon. Fuck. Since I was like, I don't even know, elementary school maybe? Like, why is that? Why do I never have watermelon? I live in North Carolina. Yeah, we were thinking about you. I was trying to remember the songs about North Carolina because I know there's so many, but all I can think about is a song about West Virginia because they sing it in The Office. That's the wrong state. Well, yeah, in the same state, yes. I forget exactly where he lives. I can't remember because I know he's only said it like maybe once. But I know he's in NC. I feel like he's kind of outside of Asheville, like, or no, sorry, maybe like Hickory area if I recall, but I don't remember exactly. But yeah, there's a lot of NCers. Wow, there's some crows here, man. I'm telling you, they're like the size of my dog. There's this one in the backyard. I always say to the birds, the rule is big birds in the back, or sorry, little birds in the front, big birds in the back. Because I have a falcon that comes and visits here regularly. It's a wild falcon. It's not a pet falcon. But you guys have probably seen some pictures. I've put them in the Discord, I think, at some point. But yeah, so we've got crows, we got hawks, but I have a falcon. So things again, you know, it's so funny. It's like things you never think you're going to see in your life, let alone in Greensboro, North Carolina. Bear and falcon. It's insane. That's right. The watermelon festival. That's right. That's right. That's right. Actually, who was it? I know someone who went to that. Who was it that went to that? I think it was somebody who's from STS, maybe, that actually goes to that watermelon festival and said it's phenomenal. Yes. Falcon and bear. Sounds like I don't even know. What does that sound like? Code or something? Or like a sports ball team. I guess sports balls are usually just one animal, right? Yes, we should. Absolutely. And Jessica, do you ride horses? And but again, you know, like Wifey said, for anyone who doesn't ride, don't worry, we're gonna bring all the duct tape. So okay, let me do this. Okay. But first, so as we know, it's Saturday Night Special, great opening statements. So, but first, oh, good, excellent. We've got some horsey people in the chat. Wonderful. Yes, yes. It'll all come back to you. Don't worry. I'm not worried. I have every confidence in your abilities. But first, what does a not so great opening statement sound like? So first, we're going to hear a little bit more of Runkle because I fucking love Runkle. Shout out to Runkle. Candace rides. This is awesome. I already knew I loved you guys. I loved you guys anyway. I don't care, but like I love you even more. How do you know DSN? And also DSN, you're maybe the only person who hasn't said they ride horses. Do you ride horses also? It's okay if you don't. We still love you. But yes, he called it. DSN called it. So like how on earth could you guess? And I love Runkle, so shout out to Runkle. And boy, if anyone ever was wondering, you're gonna see here in a second from one of these little clips, just the proof that he like had no fucking clue anything about this case by something he says here. That's pretty funny. So yeah, so let's see here. Okay. Woohoo!
They get Mr. O'Keefe and Mr. Camerano leave the girls at home. They then go to see if McCarthy is arriving there sometime between 7:30 and 8 p.m. They eventually cajole another friend of theirs, Mr. Kurt Roberts, to come out to the bar, join them as well. And there's some other people that are located within the bar, including Mr. James Sullivan, who we hear from, who was present at the bar that night as well. Eventually, the defendant, Karen Reed, joins them at this establishment, CF McCarthy's, sometime just before 9 p.m. Now, John O'Keefe and Karen Reed had met sometime in 2004. They had dated briefly during that time, reconnected sometime around March of 2020, around the time of the COVID-19 sort of pandemic shutdown.
So I'm just going to point out some people in the background. You'll see this guy, he looks like he's struggling to pay attention and struggling to follow what's going on. But then you also got this guy in the bright red and blue and white suit who is straight up passing out. Like this guy's just like, stop, you're freaking killing me.
They had started dating around that time period, or reconnected during that time period, and the defendant had stayed at the house in Canton several nights a week. She had helped out with the children. In the month or so leading up to Mr. O'Keefe's death,
Is that
the relationships.
Yep,
that's John O'Keefe's father?
there it is.
The victim's father is looking like he's passing out.
So I pause it. So first of all, I'm closing my eyes because I can't look at her face. But I made a note to self that it's really funny because if you look at the captions on there, it says that relationship or the relationship suck, which is really funny. But yeah, he didn't know it was John O'Keefe's dad. As DSN says, father of the victim.
Jury. Oh my God, he's got to be pissed.
Cruiser camera video from his cruiser detailing or memorializing sort of his response in the darkness, in the blizzard type conditions as he's driving from the Canton Police Station, where he was located when he received the call, to 34 Fairview Road. When they arrive there, they observe
Remember,
three
this is not
individuals,
so
three
great.
females, sort of off to the left side of the property. And when I say the left side of the property, I mean if you're
You
standing
can
out
call
the
them
street,
women.
facing 34 Fairview Road, off to
Like
the left
that's-
side of the property, there's a flagpole, there's a fire hydrant, there's some bushes. That is where Mr. O'Keefe is located. On the right side of the property is sort of the driveway and the mailbox and other things that you'll become familiar with through photographic evidence and other means through the course of this trial.
Just as a pro tip, describing people as females always makes you sound a little creepy in outside of like certain specific context. But yeah, three females, it's like you could just say three women.
So unaware of that, they go do a well-being check at approximately 8:22 in the morning. And
Yeah,
they also have
females-
a cruiser camera video
Females makes it sound like it's a nature documentary, right?
attached to their cruiser. You'll see that video of, and when
I
they
know.
pull
Great
into the
question.
driveway,
Where is Abby?
approximately
Abby.
8:22 in the morning, they pull in directly behind where
I just said her name like she can hear me. Like I just like, Abby, where are you?
eventually you'll hear Mr. Cade
Oh my God, I know.
the defendant's vehicle after driving into the courthouse to Meadows Ave in search of Mr. O'Keefe. And you'll have that footage,
Yeah, for
that
sure.
footage, and you'll be able to see the back of the defendant's vehicle, specifically the right rear taillight of that. Now, you'll also hear testimony, as I mentioned, from the Cameranos, from Mr. Roberts, from Mr. Soto. Also, they were all present with the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe at CF McCarthy's. You'll hear testimony from a number of other individuals who were at the Waterfall. The Waterfall is a bar located across the street, essentially from CF McCarthy's on Washington Street in Canton Center, and somewhere that Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant went after leaving CF McCarthy's at approximately 11 p.m.
Glad you're here.
So you see how his timeline is now looping back on
Abby.
itself?
I'm just pausing real quick. Different Abby, but I would love it if Abby Crossing came as well. This is Abby who actually I don't think is she actually has been Abby actually is like from like the way I accidentally started doing, not accidentally, but like coincidentally started covering like trial related stuff that had to do with back in the day. It was like EDB and Debbie Heard stuff. But anyway, Abby was one of the first people to start watching those videos. So she actually, I think, found me myself through because of like EDB videos or whatever, I guess. That's probably why YouTube recommended it. But she's awesome. And she's in the Discord as well for Law Squirrel. And she's pops in every time. She's also a veterinarian. And she's really funny.
You want to tell the
All Abby's
jury
welcome.
the story in a way that's going to.
Okay, I meant to say something. Let me rewind this just a second. I'm going to say something I meant to say at the beginning. Okay, I'm remembering it now. Thank you, Runkle, for making me remember. So I wanted to say this. So opening statements. So EDB described this as the other day. She described opening statements in a really good way because we hear people. I remember hearing somebody recently say something about how opening statements aren't supposed to be exciting, blah, blah, blah. But whoever that person was actually not an attorney. I mean, not that I'm an attorney, but like, anyway, this person seemed to not be quite so in touch with what the perspective that the attorneys would give, which is the complete opposite, because opening statements are super fucking important because the statistics show that juries, even though they're supposed to keep an open mind, and we hope they do, and they're supposed to know all the evidence, blah, 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 you know, there's a lot of people that come out with the statistics that I don't remember the exact percentage, but it's like the vast, vast majority of people make their minds up during opening statements. Maybe not like consciously, but like they all say, like, if you're the attorney, the goal is you want the jury on your side at that point. So that's really what it comes down to. It might not be that they've got enough information with the evidence, but like you want them to be on your side of the case. And that's the goal from the opening statements. So there's a couple things that have to happen here. Remember, these juries are here. They don't know anything. Well, okay, let me take that back. sometimes during voir dire, they may have heard of the case, right? As we know, that's not the problem. The problem is anything that would keep them from being able to stay fair and unbiased. So sometimes, in most cases, I would say, especially if it's not high profile, but even sometimes when it is high profile, they might know literally nothing about it, right? But worst case scenario, they might have heard of it, but they still basically know nothing, right? So they're coming in fresh, and here's how EDB described it, and I loved this description. She said it's like if you imagine a puzzle, you're going to do a puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle or whatever. And let's not all have flashbacks to Dan Rashbaum with that. Anyway, I probably just now caused that to happen. I'm sorry, everybody. But if you think of like a jigsaw puzzle with like all the little pieces, not like an easy one, like a hard one, and you have to put together the puzzle, but you don't have the picture. You know how like when you do it, they give you the picture of what it's supposed to be or whatever. She was explaining it as like the opening statements. It's like the roadmap, as we always hear it called that, right? But like I love the picture idea because it's the picture on the box. Like the rest of the trial is the jigsaw puzzle, and the opening statements are the picture on the box. So that and remember, that's why it was so crazy. Like in Michelle Troconis, they just didn't even have them. I was like, that's when we knew something was amiss, or at least I did. But anyway, it's like otherwise so if you don't have opening statements, or if you have crappy opening statements, it's like, and especially when you're the prosecution, because you have the burden, right? It's like expecting the jury to put together a puzzle and you're not giving them a picture of what the fuck they're making. I love that example. So I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, Rashi, good old Rashi. Yes, that's right. Abby was teaching everybody a lot last night, medically related things. I'm sure she will pop in at some point, hopefully. So, okay. But yes, so let me
Jury the story in a way that's going.
All right. Okay. That's why I was saying that, because Runkle reminded me of that because of what he's saying here. He's talking about how what's happening is, what's his name? Lolly. I feel like they all say it differently. And EDB's been calling him like Lolly. And then she has that screaming pickle. So now the joke is Oodalolly because it's like dill, like the dill pickle. So I think the pickles right now is named Oodalolly, but it's like Oodalolly, like from whatever song it is, where it's like Oodalolly, Oodalolly. But I've heard other people say like Lally, and then I've heard like Lelly. So I don't even fucking know, but it's this dude. But this dude is jumping around in the timeline. So that's what Runkle's talking about here.
You want to tell the jury the story in a way that's going to make sense to them. And the easiest way to make a story make sense is to tell it in chronological order. It's really difficult to tell a good story out of chronological order. You might say, well, I watched Memento and it was fantastic and it was out of chronological order. Or I watched Primer and I really liked that and it was out of chronological order. But I can tell you, for every Memento or Primer or whatever else, there's a whole lot of things that are just incomprehensible gibberish. And frankly, Primer is probably in the category of incomprehensible gibberish. It's just also really compelling. This is not compelling. This is confusing.
Yep.
Now, Christopher Albert left directly from the waterfall and went home. He lived sort of walking distance away from him. His wife, Julie Albert, had left earlier in the evening. There was a band playing at the waterfall that night. Julie Albert started to get a migraine and she left before most of the group.
And I just realized I made a mistake. I said screaming pickle because my mind crossed the goat with the pickle. It's the yodeling pickle. I don't want anyone to get confused with the goat and the pickle. It's the yodeling pickle. The goat is the screamer.
Within that migraine. And sort of how they came to the waterfall, the Albert family in particular. Julie Albert went there along with her sister-in-law, Nicole Albert, as well as her niece, Caitlin Albert, her niece's boyfriend, Mr. Tristan Morris, and they had dinner at the waterfall earlier in that evening. Now, Nicole Albert lives at 34 Fairview Road. She has a husband named Brian Albert, who's also a Boston police officer. Brian Albert had gone with a friend of his, who's also a law enforcement, a man named Brian Higgins, and they had gone separately, but had come home together from a funeral for a fallen police officer.
Shout out to Ireland.
Came home early to sort of beat the weather, and eventually they meet up with Brian Albert.
Yeah, right. I know.
Now, Tristan Morris, who was Caitlin Albert's boyfriend, had left the waterfall at some point in the evening. He then returns later to the residence of Fairview Road and picks up Caitlin Albert.
You guys,
all of this is in relation.
This dude, I'm tuning him out. I'm sure. look at Runkle's face. Let me back it up just a second. He's just going on and on naming all these people. At some point, I don't think I included it in the clip, but at some point, Runkle compares this to the beginning of the Bible. He jokes about it and says it's the part that nobody reads, where it's like so-and-so begat so-and-so begat so-and-so. That's what he compares this opening statement to.
Later to the residence on Fairview Road and picks up Caitlin Albert, brings him home. All of this is in relation to Brian Albert and Nicole Albert's son, Brian Albert Jr., whose birthday was coming up the following day, the day of the snowstorm on the 29th.
So then I tied an onion to my belt, as was the fashion at the time. When is this story going to intersect with murder? Like,
yeah, we've heard about the birthday party, the nephew, the waterfall. I mean,
somebody in the chat said it. I'm going to steal their line.
This is great.
This feels like when you ask a child about their day.
This is great.
You know, and then we drew with crayons, and Billy took the white crayon, and I wanted the white crayon, and so I asked him, "Can I have the crayon?" And he said no. So I had to get the other crayon from Fred, and you're like, "But how did you skin your knee?" And he's like, "So I took the crayon from Fred, and then we had juice." And it's like, when does this story actually intersect with the part that we care about? Does it ever? Like, is he just going to tell us this story about them getting pizza and the waterfall? And, like, does this ever actually get to why we think Karen Reed committed murder?
Now, from that group, the group that goes back is obviously Brian Albert and Nicole Albert, as they live there. Caitlin Albert, because it's her parents and her boyfriend is picking her up, as well as Jennifer McCabe, who is Nicole Albert's sister, and her husband, Matthew.
I have forgotten why I care about this. Like, I have forgotten that this is a murder trial.
Yep.
He started this whole story to tell us why these two witnesses are important. And I can't remember who those two witnesses are that he's explaining anymore. Like, I literally can't. If you asked me to go over that, I would have to back up the video. And if I back up the video, someone in chat is going to hire somebody to kill me because they will have to watch this over.
Two children who might be available.
There's an open invitation to essentially anybody that's there. John O'Keefe takes them up. There are certain text messages and phone conversations between John O'Keefe and Jennifer McCabe as to where this house is located, as he's never been there.
Oh, my mom is here. Hi, Mom. Just so you know, this is great opening statements. We're watching an example of terrible opening statements from a trial that's just started. Did it just start this week? God, I can't even remember. It's a new trial. I think it was this week. Anyway, in Boston. So we're watching a quick example here of really terrible opening statements before we get to the great part. But I'm so happy you're here. Love you, Mom. Everyone say hi to my mom. Poppy's here too.
Now, again, you'll hear testimony from a number of different troopers who were involved in the investigation. With regard to this case, you'll hear from Trooper Michael Proctor and Sergeant Bureau Mechanic of the State Police. You'll hear from Lieutenant Brian Tulloch. You'll hear some testimony from Trooper Joseph Paul, who's in a specialized unit within the State Police called.
You see, he's telling us you're going to hear from all of these officers, and he doesn't tell us what these officers are going to be testifying to.
Yeah, that's what he does the entire time. Mr. Lolly is like the whole time. It's so funny because, well, I'll save that for the end. But he keeps doing this like this entire time. It's like you hear name after name after name. He's like, you're going to hear from this, you're going to hear from this, but he doesn't ever say what they're going to actually say. It's the weirdest thing. I've never heard it ever in a trial.
Why tell us about this officer if you're not going to tell us why they matter?
Yeah.
PARS for short, but essentially a collision analysis and reconstruction section within the Massachusetts State Police. His examination of the vehicle, his examination of the scene, his examination of specifically some Toyota texture, because Lexus is essentially owned by Toyota or vice versa.
I thought that part was so funny. He doesn't even know, like, why are you saying it? Why does it matter? Like, first of all, why does it matter? Second of all, if it doesn't matter, you shouldn't be saying it. And if it does matter and you're saying it, you should have it correct. So he's like, so Tesla, or what is it? Sorry, Toyota is owned by Lexus, or Lexus is owned by Toyota, or vice versa. It's like, this is insanity.
Along with Lieutenant
What's
Tully
happening?
and a number of different members from his search team were searching for evidence within the mounds of snow in front of that house, as the blizzard is still ongoing through sort of the afternoon hours.
I love how the closed captioning called that the lizard is still ongoing.
Now, the cocktail glass on the bumper, you also see surveillance video from the waterfall, and Mr. O'Keefe walking out of the waterfall with a cocktail glass in his right hand. Same right hand that has minor injuries to it, and the same right hand that's attached to his right arm that has the abrasions and lacerations that are observed by the paramedics, that are observed by the...
Holy shit, guys. We just heard the most show-stopping thing.
This is so good.
The same right hand that is attached to his right arm, as opposed to the right hand that is attached to his left leg or to his butt.
And I totally missed that.
Okay.
Doctors, a good Samaritan, are observed by the medical examiner as well. Your testimony in regard to an initial sort of skull fracture that occurs to the back of his head, and then sort of a radiating skull fracture that goes
A sort of skull fracture?
which then leads to a subdural hemorrhage, or essentially bleeding on the brain and then swelling of the brain, which then causes a condition called ecchymosis, which then sort of leads to the swelling of both of Mr. O'Keefe's eyes that was observed by the initial response. I submit to you at that time, that second time, is that the only true and just verdict based on that is that the defendant Jeremy was guilty of murder in the second degree, striking the victim, Mr. O'Keefe, with a car, knocking him back onto the ground, striking his head on the ground, causing bleeding in his brain, swelling, and then leaving him there for several hours in a blizzard with temperatures in the teens, wind swirling around, snow.
Guys, we are at 37 minutes into a 38 or 39-minute opening, and we finally heard the word murder.
That's insane. That's insane.
37 minutes in.
That's insane.
This is unbelievable.
So there it is. So hopefully you guys liked it. So let's see, was it going to do anything else? No, that was it. Yeah. So Nightbot. Hi, Nightbot. Thank you guys for saying everyone and welcoming my mom. Look at Copper Horse once a mod, always a mod, right? I love it. That's so great. I love all you guys. Thank you so much for being here. So, okay. So we just had a really good example of a really bad opening statement, obviously. It was unbelievable. And that is something that I didn't even notice, but the fact that he doesn't even say okay, first of all, 38 or 39 minutes is actually really short for an opening statement, but it felt like 38 years. But on top of that, the fact that he didn't even use the word murder until the very last sentence is insanity. It's absolutely insane. Okay. So now on to the main event. So for this main event, the great opening statements, I think most of you guys are not going to be familiar with this attorney or what trial this is from. So what my thought is this, is that you guys I don't want to say what it's from because I want, for a good reason, which you might realize as we go along. Now, you might end up realizing what trial it's from or what's happening, which is fine, but I don't want to say it ahead of time. Because I want everyone to kind of be able to have like just a completely open mind, like no one, like, which is actually what I had when I was watching it. Oh, did they have a time limit? Okay, that makes sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start playing it. And then if you guys have questions, of course you can ask, but I'm going to try to let y'all learn the contextual information that is related to the case as it comes up from this opening statement. And I'm not going to try to spoil it or anything like that. So here we go. Woo! Party time. I don't think the O.J. Simpson trial is on YouTube, actually. This is from 2023. This trial happened in 2023. All right, let me pause this real quick. His client, thank you, Copper. Yes, exactly. Actually, I should do some music. So let's do some do 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 boom 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 boom. Y'all ready for this? Da 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 bum bum. Actually, that's like a sports ball thing, but whatever. So his client has been charged. Yeah, I don't think OJ's on YouTube. His client has been charged with child neglect, culpable negligence and perjury, and faces up to, the perjury thing is pretty rare. We don't usually see that. And faces up to 96.5 years if convicted. Oh, you know
Ladies and
what?
gentlemen of the jury.
Hang on. I don't want to talk over him. I'm just shocked that you know Mark. Did you watch this, Jessica? I don't want to. Let me rewind it just a second, because he's okay. Yeah, I'm not going to talk over it. I will pause.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury. We are here because my client was sacrificed. The evidence will show that he was thrown under the bus. My client is...
What do you think, DSN? Let me rewind that. Let's hear that again. It's so good. Let's hear that again.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury. We are here because my client was sacrificed. The evidence will show that he was thrown under the bus. My client is not a criminal, and the evidence will not prove that he committed any criminal offenses at all. He didn't know where those shots were coming from precisely.
I'm sorry. I have to watch it. That opening, I have to watch it again. I'm sorry. It really, and that's part of the thing, is like, it really reminds me of the lolly, or not. Sorry. Oh my God. Sorry. That was just, I can't believe I just said that. Not lolly. The decidedly other dude and whose name I always forget. The defense attorney. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to him that I just called him by lolly, but that's lolly on the brain. What's his name? DSN? I just can't remember, but yes, there's echoes of that, right? Yannetti, thank you. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are here because my client was sacrificed. The evidence will show that he was thrown under the bus. My client is not a criminal, and the evidence will not prove that he committed any criminal offenses at all. He didn't know where those shots were coming from precisely. We've got 22 witnesses under subpoena.
So just to make sure this parallel makes sense. So because the first, the first 4 words in Yannetti's opening statements was Karen Reed was framed. And then his first words were, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. And then he says, we are here. Now I'm going to butcher it. We are here because my client was sacrificed. He was thrown under the bus. Let's just listen one more time. I'm multitasking here, managing all the things in the main feature presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are here because my client was sacrificed. The evidence will show that he was thrown under the bus. My client is not a criminal, and the evidence will not prove that he committed any criminal offenses at all. He didn't know where those shots were coming from precisely. We've got 22 witnesses under subpoena who will come in here and tell you that they too heard the same shots my client did and could not discern precisely where the shots were coming from. There was
The precisely is actually very relevant, DSN. I don't want to spoil it by saying what trial it's from, but you'll see why. The precisely matters. And when you figure out what this is, once you figure it out, you'll be like, oh, I remember this. And it will all make sense, I promise. But the precisely matters.
Pronounced echo and reverberation that the witnesses will talk about that left them hearing the same shots and wondering, where is that coming from?
Yep.
He did everything that he possibly could with the limited information that he had to help serve and protect everybody at that school. He was sacrificed.
Objection, Your Honor.
It's overruled. Opening statement. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this purpose of opening statement is for the lawyers to tell you what they believe the evidence.
Now, here's what I want to point out. There's a couple of times where he gets objections here. What I want you guys to notice is how he doesn't miss a beat. I did see your comment. Yes, I was doing. Yes, I did see your comment. I wanted to pause it and respond, and then I was listening to him and I was enamored. But yes, let me pull that up. So I totally feel you. Yeah, it is very, yes, I feel the same way. 100% feel the same way. This was a really big moment for me watching him, where I'd never seen anything like this. It really was the first time I'd seen this from like a defense attorney that I can remember, where it was just, this is powerful stuff. This is powerful stuff. But yeah, what I was going to say is watch how when there's this objection, and I'll rewind just a second, how he literally talk about one thing I appreciate about him too, because being a musician, right? Being in the zone is something that I totally understand. It's like when you're in performance mode and you're in the zone, and in the zone is like, you're in the zone with your art, your craft. It's actually not like, it's like actually tuning out what other people are thinking. This is an example of that, because literally he's not fazed at all by this objection, and he picks up. This dude has like, he's got like superpowers. Like he's in the moment. It's amazing.
That he had
So just
to
watch
help
it.
serve and protect everybody at that school. He was sacrificed.
Objection, Your Honor.
It's overruled. Opening statement. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this purpose of opening statement is for the lawyers to tell you what they believe the evidence is going to show, but I'll remind you what the lawyers say is not evidence. Go ahead, sir.
Details matter.
Incredible.
We wanted jurors who are extremely detailed. And I'm going to get into the weeds so you understand specifically what occurred. Numbers. Let's talk some numbers, because they don't lie. And that
So we already have a theme. Details. Well, we already have a theme that he's already given the theory of the case from the get-go. Compare that to Lolly, who we don't even know what the fuck he's talking about until, if at all, the last sentence, where he finally says the word murder. I think he says Karen Reed's name once, and it's towards the end. Runkle also points that out. But here we have from the get-go, just like with Yannetti, the theme right from the get-go, right? Yannetti says, Karen Reed was framed. Here it's my client was sacrificed, who's thrown under the bus. And then we have the other themes, right? We have details and numbers. So he's giving the jury an outline already. I don't know that you could practice getting uninterrupted. I mean, maybe like if you have like a kid or something. I think it's just and the other thing too that you'll notice with him is he doesn't talk over. He waits, like, because sometimes what you'll see is if there's an objection like that, even if it's not during opening statements, what you'll see is the person who got objected to. I think what it is they worry that they're going to lose where they were, because we see that sometimes the attorney forgets what they were saying. It happens all the time. I think sometimes they think they're going to lose where they were or whatever. And so what happens is you probably have seen it. They interrupt. They'll actually cut the judge off sometimes a little bit, or they'll cut off the other. They jump right back in to try to pick up where they were. He doesn't ever interrupt or talk over anybody, which is another thing that is really incredible to see. But yeah, so he's giving them a roadmap, like we were saying. So we have the theme, and then we have details and numbers. Yeah.
sets the parameters of what happened. First number, 6:36. 6 minutes and 36 seconds. That's how long Nicholas Cruz was in the 1200 building committing his atrocities.
So you guys might realize
Nearly 6 minutes and 36 seconds. My client was there at the end of his rampage for 4 minutes and 15 seconds. I wanted to make sure you all had notepads.
The other thing about this, I'll write it a second because I don't want to miss anything. But the other thing about this too is that this is another great example of the media. Jessica, you know what I'm saying because you followed this. Dude, I never really understood just how fucked up it could be with the story that we hear in the media versus reality until this trial. This trial was a big wake-up call for me in a lot of, I don't want to say wake-up call, but it just showed me like the things that I'd heard about or knew could happen. Like I saw it firsthand. And like, it was clear as day of just yeah, Jessica says 100%, like the bias in the media coverage. And in fact, this attorney has been interviewed and stuff. And he says the same thing. He says that he had his own biases. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but he had his own biases to where because of the coverage and the reputation and all this, he 100% was not going to take this case. But the client essentially begged him. And once he started looking at the facts, he was like, holy shit, you know? And by the way, he did this alone. He did not even have an assistant. I've never seen that. I've literally, not even a legal assistant. Like it's literally him at the big, you've got the prosecution team in their table, and then you got the same size table over there for the defense. It's him and his client. That's it. This dude, I don't even know how he does it. I don't even know.
4 minutes and 15 seconds. I want to make sure you all had notepads. You can write down these details. They're critical. 4 minutes and 15 seconds. What is not in dispute at all is that when the shooter was on the first floor killing faculty and children, my client wasn't even on the scene yet, which is why he's not charged at all with those offenses. 32 years my client dedicated himself to law enforcement and serving this community. 32 years, an unblemished record. Every single witness we've spoken to and who will testify will tell you he was an exemplary officer. No ideas that he might be a coward in any way.
So what I want to say too is that one thing that you'll hear from a lot of the great attorneys that I really respect and admire on LawTube and stuff, like they'll say that one thing you want to do is you're giving the jury roadmap, right, for opening statements, but what you want to do is you don't want to make promises you can't keep. You guys have probably heard this before. You don't want to make promises you can't keep. Another thing about this attorney in this trial, you're going to hear, I wanted to mention it before it happens, but you're going to hear him make a bunch of promises as he goes along. There's a whole lot of promises in here. He brings every one of them. And he says, you're going to hear, and he says, you're going to hear from so-and-so, the witness. And then he says what they're going to say or why they're going to testify. And in fact, I meant to look up the number. I can't remember. They called some like 20 odd witnesses in this trial. The defense did. And the majority, I think all but a handful, were law enforcement, by the way, testifying for the defense.
He was great at what he did. A loving father of 4 children, 2 who served in the military, lovely wife. My client was one of those ones that Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, who would get in the middle of kids who were fighting. He would risk his life to protect others. If anybody needed any investigation done, he was there for them. Everybody will tell you, teachers, faculty, if they needed something done, he was the guy. He took care of things. He devoted his life to what he called his children. His children. He's broken up about what occurred. He was an award-winning deputy. In 2012, he won Parkland's Deputy of the Year.
What's the legal objection?
His face. But wait. Wait, hold on. You guys, I'm sorry. Let me rewind that. His face with how annoyed he is. For those of you who are wondering, did he practice like Needs and Z's was asking? Look at his face and how annoyed he is. But then watch how he doesn't miss a beat. His face being annoyed is really funny.
In 2012, he won Parkland's Deputy of the Year.
What's the legal objection?
It's argument, and it's also, that was part of, I believe, our motion in limine in this case. The court ruled on it and previously.
No, it's overruled as to both. Again, what the attorneys think the evidence is going to show at trial. Go ahead, sir.
The evidence will show that he won in 2012 Parkland's Deputy of the Year.
Yes.
In 2015, he won Parkland's School Resource Officer of the Year. And then once again in 2016, he won Parkland's Deputy of the Year. This is within just 2 years of the February 2018 vicious attack on that school. This was an award-winning, decorated officer. He was an elite officer who did his job zealously and professionally and with courage. So what we have here is a man with a decorated history of serving the community for 32 years, and in literally 4 minutes and 15 seconds, they're claiming he became a criminal. That's what they're alleging. We're here for one purpose.
So I will just say this is the first, because of what he just said there, this was the first case in American history where, U.S. history, I don't know why I said American history, U.S. history, where a police officer was being charged criminally with like, essentially for like a failure to act type of thing, type of situation. I mean, that's not how that's, as you guys saw the charges at the beginning, but essentially that's what it boils down to. This is the first time where they were being charged criminally. So that's why this was a really big deal. Well, it was a really big deal for a lot of reasons, but that was one of them. Of course, if you guys probably have started to figure out what this is about, but this trial happened after the plea and the sentencing of the actual person who did the shooting. And naturally, the victims' families, rightfully so, maybe they weren't so happy with the sentencing, and I'm not going to get into that, but there was a sense that that people were really wanting accountability. But this is why trial matters, right? Because it's not justice if the wrong person gets blamed. I mean, that's the thing. And so this there was a lot of anger going into this from people who really just wanted to blame somebody else, I think. And anyway, this attorney, Mark Eiglarsh, had his job for this. I mean, it takes a certain attorney to take this case. That's all I can say, because it's the case that everyone else would and did turn down, and he did as well initially. Because it's like no one would want this case, because it's like, but anyway, so I have so many thoughts about this. I just was going to say something else, and then I interrupted myself with a different thought. What was I going to say? Yeah. So, oh yes, just that this trial happened after the plea and the sentencing of that person who actually did the shooting. That's what I wanted to mention. Yeah. Shortly after.
Because as we've learned, someone from their office filed a document, an information, a charging document, claiming 11 counts. And he has stood before this court and he said, I am not guilty. And for 4 years, every time he came to court, he said, I am not guilty. Because he's innocent. And he did not accept responsibility for crimes that he did not commit.
So I think what that is about is, again, there's a lot of the families there that are very angry here in this situation. And I think that a lot of people, the public sentiment, again, this was just such an uphill battle. It's just such an understatement to even say that. But I think that, a lot of people said he was a coward. Why didn't he just accept responsibility, blah, blah. And he's addressing that because it's important, right? It's like, he didn't say that because he's not guilty. He didn't do anything wrong. He did his job. That's why. It's not that he's a coward and not accepting responsibility. It's that he didn't do anything wrong.
Now, how did we get here?
Good
Let's
question.
talk about that now.
Yes.
How does a decorated officer who did everything he could with the knowledge that he
But
had,
here's where the
limited to
fuckery comes in.
how does he sit as a
Good
defendant
old corruption.
with his liberty at stake in criminal court? Details matter. So let's go back to February 14, 2018. That's when the massacre occurred.
Yes, the jury got it
Whether
right.
it's right or wrong, the people at the top always get blamed. Sometimes it's justified, sometimes not. If
So
it's
these
raining
are-
outside, well, it's the president's fault.
So these are victims' families sitting here, some of the parents. You guys might even recognize their faces if you see it when it shows the faces. You might recognize them.
Gas prices go up, president's fault. But sometimes it's justified. What I will not do in this case at all is tell you whether Sheriff Scott Israel, who was the head of the Broward Sheriff's Office, whether it was justified.
Scott Israel is akin to a trooper, what's his face from Karen Reed's trial, pretty much, basically. After this whole thing, he got fired. He was investigated. I don't know, remember what else came of it, but all the things bad he did, basically.
He was getting tons of criticism immediately after this. I will not get into that because I don't like the idea of anybody blaming.
I hate to say this, but I have to disagree, and that's the thing. If you didn't watch the trial, you wouldn't have the information to even understand what's incorrect about that. And that's, but don't let me tell you. Let Mark Eiglarsh tell you.
Someone without having all the facts. I won't do that. I won't be a party to that. You got one finger pointing out, you got three pointing back. But what I will say is that the governor did find that he was incompetent and he was removed from office. But before that ever happened, Sheriff Israel, who was on the hot seat, did a Jake Tapper CNN town hall meeting.
Is objection irrelevant?
Well, as to the relevancy objection, it's overruled. But Mr. Eiglarsh, let's stick to what you think the evidence is going to be in this case. Go ahead, sir.
If they don't call him, we will call Sheriff Israel to testify. We will. We have no burden in this case, but we will make sure that we call him to testify. And he will admit to you that he was under pressure. Naturally so. He's at the top. People started to question why certain deputies didn't go in, and we'll get to why they did. He wasn't the only one, by the way. There was at least 6 others that we will call to testify. We'll explain why.
The opening statements will, I think, clarify any I'm saying he wasn't a scaredy cat and he didn't fail to act. I watched the whole trial. There's no doubt about that. I mean, that's what was proved at trial. It was proved at that's not what he's not, you can't charge someone with being a scaredy cat, right? But in terms of the failure to act, he was found not guilty, right? So I watched the whole trial. Obviously there's no doubt about what Nicholas Cruz did. But I mean, did you watch? Did you watch the trial? I think maybe I was thinking you didn't, but maybe you did. But part of the trial obviously is going through what their instructions are, and then there was an absolute litany of things that were going wrong, which you're going to hear some of that about in the opening statements. But here's what I don't want to do. I don't think we can assess unless someone's like. And for anyone who hasn't watched this trial, if you're assessing, for anyone who would be assessing this situation where we're at right now, where we're just at the very beginning of these opening statements, you're probably assessing it from where everyone, including myself, did before the trial, which is based on the media perception. Oh, I thought you said you didn't watch it, wifey, when we talked about it. But I'm sorry if I was mistaken. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Jessica, since you watched the trial? I felt like the evidence showed that he acted exactly according to his training. And they called a lot of witnesses who did the same thing. And there's just a lot of reasons why I don't think he had fault. So, but I think it's important that we hear, for anyone who hasn't heard it, right? Of course, we just want to try to make sure we hear, because he does give a lot of details in this opening statement. Like you said, details, numbers.
They didn't go into the building either. They also thought the shots were coming from a different area, based on the reverberation and based upon the echo. Good, meaningful, dedicated officers. Some who initially lost their job, but then fought and got it back, and they're working now. They have their jobs. My client's fighting for his liberty. But Sheriff Israel took that heat. I'm not saying it's justified, but he was under the gun. A lot of heat's coming his way. So he goes on CNN town hall
Yeah,
meeting with
yeah.
Jake Tapper, televised, for everybody to
Yeah, 100%. He couldn't. The echoes was a real problem. I mean, everybody, including faculty and kids, when they asked them, they're like, "Yeah, you can't tell where it's coming from." That's a known thing, and I can say too, from an acoustical standpoint, because they'll show the building. That situation where those buildings were and the way they were situated is an absolute nightmare. It's like probably the worst situation you could have acoustically, because the way that there's like those corners where buildings are facing each other, everything's bouncing off of all those big, huge concrete walls. So that was the other, and then the radio issues, it was a disaster. And he's going to mention that as well. And then there was a lack of information. Also the 911, like the what do you call it? Like when it was supposed to go through the dispatcher communications or whatever, they were sending them over to a completely different department. It was supposed to go to the Broward County Sheriff's Department, which is where Scott Peterson, where he was a part of. Instead, they were sending all their orders or whatever over to the Coral Springs Police Department. So the actual police on the scene at the time, like who were there, like Scott, like didn't get any of the information. They didn't know there was a shooter because like the people that called about it, that information was relayed to the wrong department. The list goes on, but we'll hear it. Yeah, this is just a lot.
see. And he defends consistently. Before that, after, he's defending his officers. They did the best they could with the information that they had, based upon the circumstances. He knew no one had done anything wrong. Well, that didn't fly. He will tell you that even after he went on to that Jake Tapper town hall meeting, people didn't like some of the things he said, including that he showed great leadership.
Yeah, the training at the time. So first of all, again, there was so many issues in terms of not getting the information. But regardless of any of that, the training at the time is like, if you don't know where, let's say that there isn't even any technology, right? The training at the time is like, if you don't know where the shots are coming from, that you're supposed to stay in place until you have more information. That was that. Now they have since, after this whole thing happened, the law enforcement agencies have now actually practiced for this, because this wasn't something they practiced for. And he's going to touch on that too. They didn't practice for a situation where you don't know where the shots are coming from. And so they didn't have good protocol for that. But that is now something that is practiced. But at the time it wasn't. So that's why, part of why you can't, he followed what was the instructions at the time.
And his officers didn't do anything wrong. He took a lot of heat. So what does he do? Understand, he's the head of BSO. Thousands of deputies. But like any of us, we have supervisors.
Yeah.
And if something looks wrong, you bring in somebody and you say, well, tell us what happened. Why didn't you go in? And you sit down and you talk to them. You think that occurred?
Yeah, I mean,
No, because that didn't fit his agenda.
This maybe is something that's more left to opinion, but what one could say this. One could say that someone who wants to act heroically and run into a building, like let's say that you don't know where the shots are coming from, fire, and you fire as in shots, and they'll say it was this time period where the instructions were to stay put, right? There's a reason those were the instructions, by the way. But let's say those were the instructions, and you ignore those instructions and you run towards it, and then you get shot because of that. Well, then what about the potential idea that if you'd stayed put and waited for further instructions, then you could have actually saved lives, but now now you're dead and you can't do your job. So there's a reason why you're like, okay, being heroic is one thing, but like, and this comes up in the trial too, right? Where it's like, there's a reason there's instructions and chain of command and following that. There's a reason. And it's just like when you talk about people that are like at war, or like soldiers of war, like if one person doesn't do what the plan is, it can jeopardize and risk everybody else's lives too, right? That does come up in the trial. So I think that that again, there's cops that testify for the prosecution that say, I ignored the instructions and I ran whatever. But then of course they bring in, it comes up on cross, and then they bring another, the defense brings in witnesses where it's like, I understand how from an emotional standpoint, maybe that's what people want to see, but for all practical purposes, like here's the thing, for all practical and logistical purposes, that's the wrong choice. And that's just, unless that's what your training says to do, and that's what the team then expects, your team, I say teammates, your other law enforcement up because they're all relying on being able, like, that's another thing. They have to be able to rely on the fact that they can plan on where you're at, your location. I mean, there's, so if you even just move a location from where they're expecting you to be, that can cost them their lives. And so there's just a lot of problems, when it's supposed to work. This is one of those situations where following instructions is just it's really key, I think.
What you will learn,
There are a lot of dropped balls. Yes.
is that Sheriff Scott Israel put Sheriff Scott Israel number one. Sheriff Scott Israel's ego is not his amigo. So what he did is the very next day, after he took the heat, after that CNN town hall meeting, just so we're clear, this is who we're talking about.
Yeah, I've heard about the salt and the watermelon thing. I think I've never tried it, but it sounds
This
good.
is him at the CNN town hall meeting, defending everybody, no problem, but then he took the heat. And the very next day, this is him, at a very famous press conference that set into motion why he's sitting there.
Objection, Your Honor.
Again, it's overruled if that's what the lawyer believes the evidence is going to show. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I'll remind you, opening statements, this is not evidence. What the lawyers tell you is not evidence. It's what they believe the evidence is going to show. The objection's overruled. Go ahead, sir.
This press conference set into motion such unbelievable pressure. We'll talk about what happened, but let's talk about what he said and what he didn't say. He announces to the world, all the media there, this was the biggest case around. Biggest atrocity. People want to know what happened. And at that press conference, he said, regarding my client, well, he didn't go in to kill the killer.
There you go. Yeah.
Now, what did that mean to all of us? I mean, anyone watching. Okay, wait a second. Someone from the police force.
That's that sentiment right there. That's that sentiment. We want a hero. He didn't go in to kill the killer. This is all the stuff that, I had heard myself as well, right, going into it. And it's like, you think, God, how are you going to change people's minds, right, about this person after a situation like this,
It's not very usual. What made it so credible is it's not usual to hear a police officer say something negative about another police officer. But even worse, and what made his words so problematic is that it came from the top. A guy that people knew, a public figure, who spent his career trying to get everyone to perceive him as credible and believable and honest. And now he's throwing my client under the bus. He's saying he should have gone in to kill the killer. What did that mean to all of us? Number one, wait, I guess he must have known where the shooter was. Number two, my goodness, he must have known kids were being killed in that building.
Yeah. I'm going to pause this real quick. There's a parallel here to the Karen Reed trial from yesterday, was it? So the judge gave a great, I wanted to say this. The judge did a great example. Okay. We hear this all the time. What the attorney says is not evidence. We've actually already heard him say that, like the judge say it here. But here's what the judge in the Karen Reed trial did. And it was the first time I've heard this. And actually, I think lawyer, said it was the first time he'd ever heard this as well, where the judge actually gives an example. And I'm going to copy her example from that. So she says, she's saying to the jury, like, what the attorney says is not evidence. So she says, for example, if an attorney asks a question, did you know that Johnny poisoned his uncle so that he could take the money from the will or something like that, right? And then she's like, and they'll say the person says no. She says, what that doesn't mean is that anything in that sentence is true. She said, it doesn't mean that Johnny had an uncle. It doesn't mean that the uncle had a will. It doesn't mean that the uncle was poisoned. And it doesn't mean that Johnny killed him. And it doesn't mean that the uncle died. Like, basically, like, she goes through the whole thing. And it was like a really good example. So the same thing is kind of, we can look at it here with this statement from Sheriff Israel when he says he didn't go in to kill the killer. And I'm going to rewind it just a second because Mark Eiglarsh is breaking that down in the same type of method. Where what are all the things without us even, if we hear that sentence, right? Just like with the Johnny and the will thing, the uncle, if we hear that sentence, he's right. Without even us even thinking about it consciously, that right there 100% establishes that these other things must be true first in order for the last thing, right? It means like, but let me just let him say it, but hopefully you guys see what I mean. It's like, in other words, it's like, there's an expectation that if for that question or that statement to even be said, there's a presumption that other things have to be true first when those things are not true.
What did that mean to all of us? Number one, wait, I guess he must have known where the shooter was. Number two, my goodness, he must have known kids were being killed in that building, which he did not. He sat back and did nothing. He cowered and did nothing during that time period. Well, naturally, all of us, and I include myself, said, my goodness, what kind of person does that? It was perfect. The media ran with it because now you had a villain.
Yeah.
They had Cruz, but now
Yeah.
you had a villain. Imagine a veteran officer
Yep.
with
And
a
everybody,
naked scene, huddled down, and just did nothing and protected
yeah. This is what I was saying. Everybody wanted somebody to hate.
himself.
They wanted a villain. Yeah.
That's not what happened. But that served Sheriff Israel's purpose. And here's what's more insulting and worse. Not only didn't he try to reach out to my client, the argument would be, well, there's thousands of deputies. Why would he reach out to my client? Because they were friends, ladies and gentlemen.
Does that remind you of
Sheriff Israel worked as a football coach
Right, your
at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas while my client was there. Sheriff Israel's 3 sons all went to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas when my client was there. Sheriff Israel constantly spoke of my client, even asked him for help when one of his sons got stung with a bee at the school. He called Scott Peterson. When another son was hanging out with the wrong crowd, Scott Peterson was there to help. He had Scott Peterson's cell phone number. All he had to do if he cared about the truth was call him up and say, why did you go in? How rough was it? Tell us.
You know what I want to remind everybody? This is easy to forget. And in fact, I forget this myself too. Sheriffs are an elected position, guys. Just like Becky Hill, sheriffs are an elected position. So when you think about it, right? This Sheriff Israel dude, like, it's for the sheriff departments, being that they're elected officials, it's completely different than your other law enforcement entities, right? Because that's why they might actually do things differently based on the local public perception, right? And the media perception and all that. And when you've got parents that are saying, you know, do something or whatever, like, because of the fact that they're elected, that's where you run into a lot of problems. Exactly. Yep. And he was under a lot of pressure, which Mark says it gives him the credit here, gives him the benefit of the doubt. He says, yeah, he was under a lot of pressure. And so he needed, and I mean, this doesn't actually really come out until the trial because you can't get into all this in opening statements. But basically the reason why is because Sheriff Israel is responsible for a lot of the things that went wrong. Like, that's the thing that gives me goosebumps. That's the thing that's actually fucked up. Like, the person who should have been blamed, if anyone else was going to be blamed, was the sheriff, because they actually talked about during the trial how they had put in multiple times. They'd filed complaints. The law enforcement officers had that the radio thing, whatever they're called, you know, the things they talk on the radios, they had said that they weren't working, and they'd asked for those to get fixed or whatever. And Sheriff Israel did not do anything about it. They had reported other issues with like the patching or whatever, where it goes to the different, there were all these different things that they had brought to his attention, and he hadn't fixed any of it. And he's in charge. And like, so basically, in order to take the heat off of himself, he put all the heat on Scott Peterson so he could try to hopefully get reelected, I guess, in his mind.
Wrong crowd. Scott Peterson was there to help. He had Scott Peterson's cell phone number. All he had to do if he cared about the truth was call him up and say, why did you go in? How rough was it? Tell us what happened.
Yeah.
The evidence will show he didn't do it, and there's only one reason why. Because anything my client said, which would have explained why he didn't go in, would not have served Scott Israel. He didn't want to hear the others.
No, I don't remember all the fallout. There was a lot of fallout. He did not get reelected, and there was like an investigation, and he's disgrace. Like I think he had to do what Becky Hill did, because you can't fire elected officials. I think he pulled a Becky Hill and like resigned early, that type of thing. Resigned in shame type of deal.
Side. He needed a scapegoat. He got an email from one of the parents in this case, and the parent asked him, why didn't he go in?
I don't know.
Why? He could have prevented my daughter's death. And Sheriff Israel responded, well, we're wondering ourselves.
Dude, this part.
Can't
This part where he freaking lies to the victim's parents. Dude, let me rewind it just a second. I'm talking over it like I said I wouldn't do.
go in. Why? He could have prevented my daughter's death. And Sheriff Israel responded, well, we're wondering ourselves. Can't teach courage, his whole thing. But what he failed to tell her was, your daughter was killed on the first floor. He wasn't even at the scene at that time. That's not even, you heard that from the state, that's not even in contradiction. My client wasn't even on the scene. He was heading towards the scene. This is a man who cared so much about himself, the evidence will show, that to this day, I believe that there is a mother whose child was killed on the first floor, who blames my client because Sheriff Israel never told her the truth. That is so disturbing.
Yep, disturbing. Okay, I looked it up. Okay, he was the sheriff there from 2013 until 2019. So I had forgotten too that this shooting happened prior to 2019, obviously. So 2013 and 2019, and the Parkland shooting happened in 2018. So then he actually, so it looks like Ron DeSantis actually suspended him. He was able to suspend him, I guess. Maybe the sheriff, because even though it's an elected official, maybe the rules are different. But I mean, we know from all the other stuff with Becky Hill that the elected official thing. Oh, it looks like they had to have a hearing thing to do it too, but he got removed. Yeah, so he was removed by the governor, sorry. And I don't think it says what he's doing now. Looks like he's probably trying to stay out of the media. But yeah, so that was it. That was it for him.
And I'm going to ask him about that. He needs to answer for that publicly.
Yes, lies kill. Yep.
You're going to learn that an investigation began. And the lead investigator, Keith Riddick, who I'm going to have on the stand for quite some time, he's got a lot of explaining to do. It will not be quick, folks. Just a little taste. I will ask him, this issue, big issue in this case is what my client knew. Right? Because he's saying he didn't know where the shots were coming from at certain times. Thought maybe the 1,200 building, but maybe the 1,300 building, maybe 700 building. There were so many things going on that my client then says on his radio, while he believes the shooter is still in the building, Perry, referring to Deputy Perry, who was with someone who was injured. He just announced he was with someone who was injured. He said, Perry, does he know where the shooter is? Asking in real time.
Yeah.
Does that person know where the shooter is to try to find out where it is? And you will learn that Keith Riddick left it out of his report. And when asked, why?
Does this remind you of Care Reed or what? Just the law enforcement not leaving stuff out of the report. I mean, it's just, you hate to hear.
Well, the shooter was gone by then. I said, you mean by a minute and a half? No one on the scene knew the shooter had gone. He left through the west exit. My client didn't know. No one knew. Don't you think that goes to a state of mind? No, I don't. That's what you're dealing with. Or number two, he wrote, there's no evidence to support what my client said to investigators, that he ordered a code red. Yet, Anna Ramos, we were school. She heard my client immediately ordered a code red for the benefit of all the kids, including the ones on the third floor that he is accused of neglecting. She came up to him and gave him a hug at one of the funerals to thank him for ordering the code red because it saved lives. Jeffrey Morford, assistant principal, he heard my client order the code red over the school radio. And then as a result, he said he ordered the code red. He only did it because he told me he heard Peterson do it. But Morford is credible and believable, yet Riddick, the lead investigator, fails to include that information in his report. This was you will learn, the evidence will show, a biased and failed investigation from the beginning, which ultimately led to charges like child neglect.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
We'll focus more on that throughout this case. But that somehow all of this leads to child neglect, charging him as if he's a mother who fails to give their child water or food. Now, let's talk about the facts of what occurred and what really happened. And you've got paper and pen. Make sure that you understand exactly what occurred. Let's do a general overview first. Prosecutor kind of went over it with you. I want to start big, and then we'll get down into the minutia. I absolutely want to make sure at all times you understand this fully. If there's ever a time that I think I might need to go back and make it clear, forgive me. It's only because I want you guys to fully understand what's going on here. Okay?
You know what I can say? Is that he's got the jury's full attention this entire time. What are you guys saying BAM to? Hold on, I might have missed it because I was looking for a file here to add. He's got their attention the entire time. And now we're going to see him do another thing that, as we know, is phenomenal for opening statements. He's going to use exhibitties, as EDB calls it. He's going to give them diagrams. But he's just got their full fucking attention. I think I must have missed something. Hold on, let me go back just a second.
Understand this fully. If there's ever a time that I think I might need to go back and make it clear, forgive me. It's only because I want you guys to fully understand what's going on here. Okay? So, first, this is a kind of an overview of the school. Now, while this board is small, it in no way represents the 45 acres that the school is. I need you all to understand that because unfortunately we're not going to get to go to the school together.
Yeah.
This is building number one. Let's start there. Building number one is where my client's office is, where it was anyway. Scott's office was. And where he was while he got information that there was firecracker complaint inside the 1200 building. Okay? So understand, he's here. Let me stay general. Okay? This is the 12.
That's key. I'm going to say this because this is something that you don't really learn that much about until the trial. But the firecracker thing is a big deal here because the thing is that at this school, it was Valentine's Day, and there was the kids were notorious for doing firecrackers at the school for holidays. So that actually was something that the kids were doing. So that was part of the trouble, just in terms of, we know that most of the time people, when they hear gunshots, they don't know what it is a lot of the times, right? It's even worse if you're talking about where the echoing, like in this case, and when you see the buildings, you're going to see what I mean, of how the acoustics were a nightmare. But add to that the confusing fact that it was Valentine's Day and the kids had been doing firecrackers. And, they're not supposed to, they get in trouble for it or whatever. But so that just added to it that everyone thought it was firecrackers.
100 building,
of course,
where it occurred. This is literally like a football field. I mean, this is far. Then you have next to it the 1300 building, and then you'll hear reference in my opening and throughout this case, the football field. This is over here. This is literally hundreds of yards away. Hundreds of yards from the 1200 building. So when you hear, for example, Deputy Kratz, who will testify that he went on his radio during the shooting, while the shooter was actually on the third floor, and yells, "Shots fired by the football field, football field." And my client's trying to figure out in real time where the shots are coming from. Deputy Kratz is referring to over here, hundreds of yards away, not where the actual shots were coming from. Kratz will tell you with his own words, he literally thought the shooter was 30 feet away from him on the football field. So this is the overview.
I mean, so what he's saying there is the information that Scott got over the radio is shots coming from the football field, because the other officer who heard them thought that's where they were coming from, because from wherever that officer was situated, that's where the sound was echoing. the whole thing was a disaster. Bye, Candace. Thank you so much for being here. It was great having you as always. Have a wonderful evening and weekend. So it just with each sentence, it's just worse. Yeah, worse for the prosecution, but also just so fucking unfortunate, you know?
Okay, I'll refer
Just
to
wrong
it
in every
needed,
way.
just so you have a perspective. So my client is here, building number 1.
Well, you know what?
So he's in.
Dude is so impressed. He doesn't even get flustered. He's doing this all by himself with these exhibits and everything. I mean, in my mind, I'm like, fuck, what I would have struggled to get that thing on the stand, and then what if it fell off? And he's just like chilling.
You can take Sheriff right down.
Like I would have knocked that over and clicked on it because I'm really clumsy.
Thank you, Judge. So my client was in his office before the shooting took place. And what he was doing is he was investigating a felony. One of the students, an 18-year-old, had a fake driver's license. And what he was doing was he was researching at the time the statute, the felony statute, so he could tell the father who was coming to the school and the daughter. He wasn't going to arrest her or anything, but they wanted to know it's a very serious offense to possess a counterfeit driver's license. So he was busy researching that. His phone was across the room being charged. But he did overhear at one point, wait, shots fired. Not shots fired, excuse me. Firecrackers in the 1200 building.
Right.
Firecrackers.
Yeah.
Now, it was Valentine's Day. There had been fireworks, let off in the building before. It wasn't like, oh my goodness, at that point. So he and Kelvin Greenleaf begin to leave. When they start to run is when all of a sudden the fire alarm goes off. You'll see on the video, they start to head towards there, and all of a sudden, fire alarm. And then they start to run.
It's like you can see it.
And let me just stop. The evidence will not show that then he goes, wait a second, those firecrackers or fireworks could be gunfire. Let me go jump into my car and drive away. You will learn that that never happened. See, that we could all agree would be neglectful.
There you go.
But he immediately...
That was fucking, I'm going to run. That was brilliant. He gave an example of how with these facts, at what moment would it actually have counted? At what point would the charges be appropriate? That's really what he's saying. It's like, at what point are these charges appropriate and accurate for what's happening here? Hi, I was just thinking about you, Fender. I was like, where the fuck is Fender? I haven't seen Fender in forever. I'm so happy you're here. Y'all, Fender is an OG from Deputy Heard and comes to us from India. I am so happy you're here, Fender. I was worried. It sucks because it's like without people on Discord, there's no way to reach out to people and be like, are you guys okay? You know what I mean? And so I'm so happy you're here. This, I almost don't want to say because it might ruin, there was a huge amount of public sentiment before this trial that everybody, myself included, had that the reason one of the reasons this is a great opening statement is because of the way the defense attorney had just the hardest job in the world and did a fucking amazing job. But I'll just go ahead and say it, I guess, since we're like almost halfway through the opening statements. So this is related to the Parkland shooting. You are on the Discord? How come I don't ever see you on there? Do you have a different name on the Discord? Well, I'm glad you said that. That's awesome. Everybody, Fender's on the Discord. That's great. So this is from the related to the Parkland, shooting, but this is from there was that whole thing with the police officer who was the media. Okay, awesome. Well, I'm glad you said that. Yeah, it's hard to really know unless you see people like commenting on stuff, but I don't know if there's a way that you can actually like get a list. I've never actually looked for that, but usually it's like I just know because I see people talking on there. But yeah, so the police officer or the school resource officer, the media portrayed him as, well, and it was because of the sheriff, right? The sheriff kind of came out and blamed everything on him. Anyway, we've kind of gone over a lot of that, but we're just going through all the atrocities and stuff. But what was I going to say about Mark Eiglarsh? Crap. Let me back it up just a second, see if I had something else I was going to comment on here. I'm sure I did because he's.
You will learn that never happened. See, that we could all agree would be neglectful. But he immediately.
Yes. Now I remember. Okay, let me back it up a little bit further. Now I remember what I was saying. So I was saying is that this is actually brilliant. He's giving an example of with how the charges would be appropriate given these facts, so that the jury can actually see. He's not saying under no circumstances would it be neglectful for somebody to do whatever, right? He's giving them an example of here's what it would look like if somebody was doing something that would warrant these charges. I think this is brilliant because then they can contrast it with what
Firecrackers in the 1200 building. Firecrackers. Now, it was Valentine's Day. There had been fireworks, let off in the building before. It wasn't like, oh my goodness, at that point. So he and Kelvin Greenleaf begin to leave. When they start to run is when all of a sudden the fire alarm goes off. You'll see on the video, they start to head towards there, and all of a sudden, fire alarm. And then they start to run. Now let me just stop. The evidence will not show that then he goes, wait a second, those firecrackers or fireworks could be gunfire. Let me go jump into my car and drive away. You will learn that that never happened. See, that we could all agree would be neglectful. But he immediately runs and then he gets picked up by Andrew Medina, who's driving a golf cart. And the evidence will show you that at no point on their way to the 1200 building does Andrew Medina share with my client some really helpful material. Like he saw someone, that nutty cruise guy, walking with a duffel bag or some type of large bag that potentially contains some serious items in there.
That part was huge. So, and that comes up again. We see they actually have it on video, and they actually, the dude testifies. So what happens is that this is the first person that Peterson sees after this, the quote unquote firecrackers or whatever. And the dude there was another dude that worked at school that saw, he describes it, right? Nicholas Cruz, that creepy guy or that weird guy, because he'd been kicked out of school and he had a large duffel bag. He doesn't tell Scott Peterson. Let me back that. It's like, what? You saw that? And you didn't tell anybody? Why are you, again, if they're trying to find a scapegoat, why not him? You know what I mean?
Walking with a duffel bag or some type of large bag on their way to the 1200 building, does Andrew Medina share with my client some really helpful material? Like he saw someone, that nutty cruise guy, walking with a duffel bag or some type of large bag that potentially contains some serious items in there, and that he walked into the 1200 building. He never shared that with my client. That would have been real helpful. The evidence will show, because we will call Kelvin Greenleaf if they don't, that he never heard Medina at all share with them the information that he had, which could have led to a different trajectory. So now, when he gets to the scene, and you all take a look at this, and it's going to be a little overwhelming at first. I promise I'm going to break it down for you, okay?
So there he's really coming across as their friend. He's here to help them understand the facts of the case. I just love it. By the way, Fender, because we've got a lot of updates since the last time I think I've seen you here, with things going on technology wise, I guess you could call it, or whatever. But anyway, we still have some new commands, some other stuff, but and we had a whole lot of Murdoch related jokes, man. I don't know if you recognize any of these. Let's just for fun, real quick. We have hey, he's got a bird in his mouth.
There's a chicken.
It's a house.
And also Fender, since you and Wifey haven't met yet, Fender is our Wifey is Triple R. I have to in my brain. So Run Red Rabbit is Triple R Wifey, who used to be Wifey and is now Triple R Wifey because of the new name, because she used to have a different name. Anyway, as you can see here. So if ever I say, and other people also call her Wifey too. So if you hear Wifey, that's Run Red Rabbit, and she used to have a different name. But she used to be called T-Pain but always Wifey, and now Triple R Wifey. But yes, so it's a house. Okay, let's keep going.
But it's critical that you understand where the shots were coming from, okay? All right, let's stay general on this at first, okay? First, This is the same, we got the same thing that the prosecutor put up in his opening, but there's more detail, so it would be accurate. First, understand, this represents the first floor. Even though these two are together, it's kind of overlapping. The second floor overlaps to show that it's over the first floor. But this is the first floor, right here. And second floor is here. And then third floor is here. Everybody with me so far, okay? We've got north, west, east, south.
Great exhibit he's got here.
Okay? And don't look at the shots just yet, okay? That's something we'll get into in just a moment. Let's start generally. This is worth repeating. Again, big picture. 6 minutes and 36 seconds, total time he's spending. We're going to show you exactly how we account for that time, okay? And this is not in dispute. I don't think that anyone's going to dispute these times. We made sure that they're actually from the material we received from the state. Okay? Deputy Peterson was there for the last 4 minutes and 15 seconds. And the final 2 minutes of the 4 minutes and 15 seconds, I'm jumping ahead, were spent with the shooter on the third floor, shooting west, the furthest possible distance
I
from where
believe
my
when the
client
most
was.
damage happened.
So let's stay general again. What we didn't learn just yet, and you're about to learn, is this building, the 1200 building, is 73 yards long.
Now, don't worry, guys. If you're like, I can't picture what 73 yards is, like that's the way I am. I'm like, I have no concept of that. We're going to see it here shortly. He's going to show us.
Evidence will show that we're talking about 3/4 of a football field. And so that you guys have an idea of what that looks like, I'd like to show you, so you have a perspective of what the building looks like. This picture doesn't even have the entire building in it. It was the best one that we got. So what I want you to take a look at is this. Let me hit play for a second.
So Fender said, Fender, are you familiar with the Parkland shooting situation at all? I mean, I don't think you even really have to be. I think that probably it would just, if you know, it's not easy coming in halfway through an opening statement for any trial. You know what I mean? Jessica's back. Do you want me? So, okay. I don't know. Let me rewind this a little bit. I'll try to see if I can answer the question for Fender maybe by typing it, or if you guys want to try typing it. Yeah, look at that building. So let me just rewind it a little bit. Okay.
I'd like to show you, so you have a perspective of what the building looks like. This picture doesn't even have the entire building in it. It was the best one that we got. So
Okay, so maybe that's a better picture. So because what he's wanting to show is how big the building is, which you can't even get the whole building in the picture he's saying. And then the shot that made, or when I say shot, I mean the camera's perspective that was weird, where it looked creepy. That is showing, that's actually an exhibit from the prosecution. That's actually showing where he was shooting out of, apparently. Like, he's going to explain that. But yeah, so basically, I don't know if you ever were familiar with like the whole rumors, okay. The media perception about the police officer being a coward and hiding, and that, you know, there's been some other situations where there's been shootings and the law enforcement has kind of come under scrutiny. This was like the first time I recall that really happening. And then it happened again with like Uvalde or whatever it's called. But I know, I agree. It really isn't. It looks like a death trap, doesn't it? 100%. And what you'll see, like that again, that same perspective where it looked creepy, you can see how it's just surrounded by concrete. And even the bottom of it is concrete. Like, there's no grass there, as you'll see. Like, it's an acoustical nightmare. Like, if you're trying to sing, like, it's going to be great. But if you're trying to like, in other words, it's going to echo like crazy. It's just, you can just tell, because it's tall and it's all concrete. So yeah, but this defense attorney is one of my favorite opening statements, and but that's why we're watching it, because it's a Saturday night special for opening statements. So, and so he's defending, you know, his client was the school resource officer there, who's facing up to 96.5 years in prison.
I want you to take a look at is this. Let me hit play for a second.
Isn't that awful? Ugh.
Here we go. Yeah, it is playing. Okay, from one end all the way to the other end. Take a look.
Stay away from lots of concrete. And he's gonna be here. We're gonna get an idea for the size. That's what she said. It's bigger than you think.
As you can see, this is a huge, huge building. It is nothing like I'm sure you imagine. To give you further perspective, this is
That's the window.
to show you just the size and the distance
You
of
can
what
see
we're
the
talking
glass.
about. What you're seeing now is the last 2 minutes. As I told you, the shooter was in the 1240 building, sniper firing out of 2 windows.
I love that you guys are all meeting each other. This makes me so happy. So, what's crazy about this school? So the school was kept. In fact, it's still there. Like they just left it. You know, contrary, right, to the Idaho house. Not that that's not trying to. Sorry, not trying to switch gears. But anyway, what makes this so, to me in my mind, it's like it's kind of a big. Because it is such a huge school and it's on like 70 trillion acres, I think it's actually 72 acres, but it's like on a lot of property. It's a big school. That's actually kind of a big deal. Just I'm thinking like budget wise from like the county or whatever, you know what I mean? Because like to have a replacement school would cost, I don't even know, millions, billions of dollars. I don't really know. And it was a new school, like, you know what I mean? So, in other words, like all the kids never came back to school and I guess they just put them somewhere else. I don't really know, but anyway, just from like a logistical standpoint, that's like, it's great. I think these structures should be preserved, you know? But I'm glad they were able to do it. And I think to my knowledge, it's still there actually and still unoccupied.
What I'm showing this to you right now is just to see the perspective from where that shooter is to where the 700 building is and where my client is.
I love all the hugs. The hugs are great.
Try to give you some perspective. I'll pause it at one point. And by the way, what you're looking at is a recreation done by the state of what the shooter was doing. I'm just going to let it run. I will not stop it, but I'll talk over.
This is a reenactment.
This is the west side of the building. This is the side that Aaron Price was shot on. And where my client, he was on the other side of this building, 73
I mean,
the door.
you can
that
see it how-
right there where Aaron Price was shot outside of.
Dude,
and then all in the distance.
and then it's like as if all concrete buildings weren't enough. It's like there's concrete everywhere. It's really.
And the other side is where my client was, and to the right is the 700 building. And that becomes key because a lot of kids come out of that building, hear the same shots my client did, and thought that those shots were coming from a different location. Okay, so let's continue. The first shots that my client hears, and you'll be able to see it on the video. Everything is corroborated by the video. The first shots occur here, 2:23:25. 2:23:25. This is, as you can see, the shooter is pointing his gun west, in a westerly direction. My client, by the way, is approaching the east side door, about to go in to check out a firecracker complaint. No one went on the radio. You'll be able to see the entire dispatch transcript. No one said shots fired in first floor, kids being killed. Nothing. He didn't get any of that. You'll be able to see, you'll read it yourself. He gets there, and both him and you'll hear from Greenleaf, they believe they're investigating a firecracker complaint. Because the door was open, shots get fired. My client hears a loud boom. He doesn't think, wait, kids are being killed in the 1200 building. He just hears a loud boom. The first thing he does is he's approaching the door, and he never opened up the door. He never got to, if he ever looked in the window or got close enough to do it, he probably would have seen the carnage that was created by Cruz. But he didn't get that chance. He walks close to the door. He hears those shots. Sniper fire is one of the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
You hear shots from outside. He feels vulnerable, you will learn, the evidence will show. But the first thing he does is he doesn't run for cover. He stands there out in the open and immediately does what a cop does. You report shots fired. Here are his dispatch remarks. And the first one he makes at 2:23:26.
Yeah.
Note that it was 1 second.
I think this is great that he has this blown up on this exhibity. These are all of his dispatch calls or whatever, over the radio. Of course, we know those weren't working, but regardless.
1 second after Aaron Feist is shot from outside, my client immediately gets on his police radio and he says, be advised, we have could be firecrackers. So let's start there.
Yeah.
4 minutes and 15 seconds, the evidence will show, starts to tick when he gets on the scene. He's only got 4 minutes and 15 seconds to get to the shooter and neutralize the threat. But what you're going to learn is he's still struggling with, firecrackers? And then he says, I think we have shots fired, possible shots fired. And 1200 building is a reference because he's standing 10 feet from the 1200 building. You will see a couple of references to the 1200 building, and the evidence will show that that is his positioning at the time. Not, I'm hearing shots fired with certainty from inside the 1200 building. He never says that. The closest he gets, as you will see, is by inside. He's struggling. When he hears more shots, you will see, the evidence will show, that one of the options is it's by the 1200 building, because the building's 73 yards long, and that contains a large area, and also possibly inside sniper firing, which is exactly what it turned out to be. All that's in play. The evidence will show that neither he nor the officers in real time had all the information that we have today. That's just a fact. So everything in his mind is in play. Everything, you will learn, is a possibility at that moment. Now, this is telling, because right after this, again, we're talking about 20 some odd seconds later, my client is saying, make sure we get some units over here. I need to shut down Stoneman Douglas. This is the first of 5 transmissions where my client's making it clear, we need to shut down this school. He doesn't say, we need to get into the 1200 building because kids are being killed. He says we need to shut down the school because the evidence will show that he and the other officers will testify to it. They all believed that the gunfire could be coming from anywhere, and that if, as school is letting out, parents come in, students are coming out, they could all be hit by gunfire around the building, anywhere on campus. Not, the evidence will show, not that everything was contained within the 1200 building and someone needs to rush in there. That's what the evidence will show.
So Jessica, so I was looking at Discord. So, that's your dog, right? And then the neighbor's cat, is that, do they actually play together? That is so cute. It looks like it's a little cat too from the picture. So yeah, but I think this is also a good point too about how, that's reasonable, right? If you don't know where the shooters are and you think they're outside because that's the information you've been told, that shots, the first thing he got was that the shots were coming from the football field, and as we know, school was about to let out, parents were on their way, lock down the school. Makes sense.
My client, you will learn, went with Kelvin Greenleaf. He doesn't stand in the open, but right before he does, not only does he make this first transmission to send the cavalry, you'll hear many officers saying that my client was a great service to them because They didn't know about the shooting until he announced it. I mean, he set in motion the wave of all the officers coming to the scene. He did his job.
Good question, Fender. So the charges are, the way they charge it is child neglect. The argument there, or not the argument, but the way the prosecution was trying to use that is like because he had a duty of care for the children or something. It's almost like usually the way that was used was almost like the way you would do it for like a babysitter or something, or a nanny if they like, are neglectful and then something happens to the kid. So it was like child neglect. What was the other one? I had it at the beginning. Child neglect. Oh my gosh. Let me see if I can go to the beginning part of the slide. It's 33, 36. Hold on. Let me see if I can find that part because I have it here at the beginning. Hold on. Okay, there we go. There it is. Culpable negligence and perjury. Fees up to 96 and a half years. So let me pull it back to where we were. You're right about here. Yeah. That's exactly right. He didn't have the facts we do today. Absolutely. Yeah, you missed a lot of the other parts, the good points too, but there were a lot. There's a lot, but even from where he is now, yeah, he makes a good point. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, it's a lot of a stretch. Yeah. I mean, I would highly recommend too. I know you're here for the chat, but I would highly recommend too, like after the live stream, if you feel so inclined, you can go and watch some of it from the beginning because it is really, really compelling stuff. Yeah, 96 and a half. Yep. This was the first time also in history where a police officer was being charged criminally for what essentially is like a failure to act situation, like, a school resource officer, right? Type of thing. I think actually that was also the thing. It was the first time a police officer that was like a school resource police officer was charged criminally. Yeah. That's absolutely true. Yep. Yeah. And, again, he really was made out to be a scapegoat, or as Michael Scott would say, a scapegoat. But yeah, it is a damn shame.
They didn't know about the shooting until he announced it. I mean, he set in motion the wave of all the officers coming to the scene. He did his job. You will learn then that he also gets on a school radio before, again, going to this tactical position of cover. Before he does that, he gets on a school radio and he announces code red for the benefit of everybody on that campus.
Yeah.
Then he doesn't stand out in the open, you will learn. He goes and he makes sure that he and Kelvin Greenleaf are protected over here. Because you will learn that both of them, Kelvin Greenleaf will say, listen, you don't stand out in the open. In fact, my client even said at one point to Kelvin and others, get away, get out of the way.
So that's kind of like what I was saying too earlier in this about the whole thing about, the idea of running towards fire. In this case, it's just even standing out in the open. He's kind of making the point that him and the other officer were talking to each other because if you're no good to anybody if you're dead, right? Is kind of the point. Like that's why their instruction is to take what he's saying, like a tactical position of cover. That was their training.
I want to highlight just some of the other things that my client said in real time, and I also want to go into greater detail during the trial, okay, about what each of the shots meant and what he was thinking throughout this. But ultimately, you will learn that there was literally 34 seconds from these shots to here for my client to have gotten up and then somehow neutralized or killed the killer. You will learn that it took a SWAT team of 12 people.
This is important.
30 minutes to clear the first floor, second floor, because you don't just go running into the third floor and kill the killer. The evidence will show that the SWAT team had to first go through every classroom. It took them 30 minutes to clear the first floor, second floor.
I'm going to rewind this too. This is addressing the idea that, because again, a lot of this is not practical, but this was the sentiment that a lot of people had, which is like, why didn't he just go in there and shoot him, right? Like even Scott is the sheriff, why didn't he go in there and kill the killer? So this is really just showing this, just the practical, like, here's how it works in real life. Let me just back it up.
SWAT team of 12 people, 30 minutes to clear the first floor, second floor, because you don't just go running into the third floor and kill the killer. The evidence will show that the SWAT team had to first go through every classroom. It took them 30 minutes to clear the first floor, second floor, third floor. The evidence will show that even if my client knew, which he didn't, where precisely the shots were coming from at 4 minutes and 15 seconds when that started, there is no way he would have made a difference. No way. The evidence will also show that you'll hear from the officers who are over here, west of the building, that even when the shooter was in the middle of the third floor, that these officers thought that the shots were coming from a different location, outside, not inside. Just a few more transitions I want to go through, and again, we have the whole trial to be together to go through everything. I don't want to bring it all out in my opening. We'll get to it. Okay, I'm anxious.
And I'm trying to remember, I don't know, I haven't heard anything about Uvalde, but what I do remember is that when information started to come out about that, it was completely different. And I don't remember, I know there were a lot of cops that were all doing whatever they were doing. I don't even remember if they, but, and I also remember there was stuff like like in that case, at a minimum, it's like they had good information and they also waited for like a really long period of time. And I think they actually knew where the shooter was. There were a lot of differences. But I haven't heard anything about that recently. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, are you referring to somebody you know, wifey? Yeah, I mean, and of course we know like there's not that it's a school, we know Derek Chauvin, I mean, like there's plenty of times where law enforcement does terrible things and they should have, but I think that's the thing is like, I think it's just, that's the point. That's why it has to be investigated properly. Right. And it has to you need a fair trial. Like if it wasn't for a fair trial, that's the point, right? Because you don't want them to you don't want people who did something wrong to get away with it. And you don't want people who didn't do something wrong to get put in jail. That's the point, right? So that's why it matters. Our justice system. So
Just for you to hear the evidence, okay? My client
regardless
is saying,
of law enforcement or not,
we
right?
don't have a
That's
description yet, we just hear shots fired, appears to be shots fired. Again, you see him trying to lock down the school. Get the school locked down, gentlemen, get it locked down. What that's doing, the evidence will show, is it's keeping officers and people away. So, again, at 2:25:56, this is all while the shooter is shooting. My client's saying, we're locking down the school, we're locking it down. He's recording, I hear shots fired. So this allegation that he doesn't then include that he heard extra shots, it's right there. He's telling you, shots fired. And this is key, and this is why I put it in red. My client said at 2:28, so we're talking about literally 25 seconds after the shooter was done shooting. But
yeah, Chauvin got convicted. Actually, that was the first trial I think I watched gavel to gavel, believe it or not, was the Derek Chauvin, because that was right around the beginning of COVID. And it was before I actually discovered LawTube. And the first thing I discovered of LawTube was actually Lawyer and it was because of the George Floyd trial, Derek Chauvin trial. It was during all that. It was before it was before the trial started, right? But it was during the unrest and all that. And Lawyer was just a baby channel. And he was doing, at the time, he was just doing like little videos about law topics and stuff. And then he started covering, he didn't do gavel to gavel, but he started doing, recaps or whatever for the Chauvin trial. But I watched, I don't even know if any LawTubers were streaming it. And I didn't know that was even a thing. So I just watched it based on whatever, like court TV. But I watched the entire jury selection and the entire trial because everything was canceled at that point with COVID. And I watched that entire trial, myself and I was like, wow, I'm glad I did that. Like that was it. That was the beginning of the end for me with trials. I was like, I love it. I love it. So yeah. And also the other dudes also, I think had trials. Some of them may have done done some wheeling and dealing with the prosecution, but they all got justice was served in that case, I feel like, because I know they did get, it was a lot of years, everybody, yeah. So, what didn't you know, wifey? And actually, Chauvin recently was stabbed in prison too from another inmate, if I recall. No, what? No. It's so funny, wifey. Doesn't that sound like something that you would say? Like, I feel like there's always people who. There was somebody who said this even yesterday, I believe. I'm trying to remember. Somebody always apologized for distracting me, but you guys are fine. I have this like weird brain where I can like laser like focus on many things at once. So as you've probably seen already, you guys have been here. If I get distracted because I see some other question or some other topic, I tend to always remember where I was for the most part, and get right back to it. So yeah, like in prison, because like, because he's a horrible dude, Chauvin, you know what I mean? Like the other inmates. So you guys, just to remind you guys, defenders in India. So maybe, I don't know what familiarity you have, Fender, with like the American prison system. But like, they've got their own code there in the prisons. And so, they make these knives out of different things and then they stab each other. They call it a shiv. A shank, yeah, shank, a shiv. There's all these names for it, and they can make them out of various items, and they do it to each other. That sounded weird. What's not good? Everything's good. Yes, there's plenty of squirrel tangents. So we've had so many. You've missed a lot of good tangents. So yes, I can. Thank you, Copper. I can multitask. So like, I always have like ongoing lists in my brain of all the different things I'm like thinking about and like remembering to research and like, all kinds of stuff. So, right. That's what I thought. Did you guys see? I do it to myself. They do it to each other. I do it to myself. About to do it to myself right now. Did you guys see? I haven't watched it yet, but I saw a thing of what's his face? Daryl Brooks made a court appearance, and apparently he was wheeled in a wheelchair. Again, I haven't watched it because there's just been so much going on, and I've actually done a live stream every day this week, I believe, which is insane. Yeah, every day I think, and so I saw that and I was like, note to self. Again, it's in the list in my brain to watch it, but just I don't know if you guys saw it. So yeah, I know the trial is for the charges with his with that poor girl. The other thing for anyone, I'm sure it'll be streamed. For anyone who's wondering too, I've been actually brushing up, believe it or not, on all the previous documents in Idaho and hearings regarding the IGG, so I can try to better explain some of it. I was able to confirm that. I was able to confirm that. I didn't steer you guys astray, which I always make every. You guys all know, like I double, triple, quadruple check myself because I always assume I'm wrong about stuff, and I never mean to give, like, if I ever give you guys like incorrect information or whatever, like I'll just go hide in a cave and quit YouTube and never say anything to anybody again. Like so so I'm very careful, but I like to make sure I can fully explain things, right? And so but yeah, I mean, as I've said before, it was accurate, which is like, you have your arrest, your search warrant and your arrest warrant, and the IGG is used for that. And even I went back to the documents and the stuff from like a year ago, actually. And like, it's the same discussion as what we've been having now with that, which is like that, was only used to find him. It's not being used to prove guilt or innocence. So that's what the buccal swab is for. And then the concerns over people's identities being exposed. It's the same stuff. So all that is same as before. And yeah, anyway. Oh, his box for it. I know. It was really funny to watch. It was. No, this is the trial for him. What was it? Like, assault and battery maybe of his ex-girlfriend. It's related to that. And I remember it came up during the initial trial, like it came up because, I mean, not that it was addressed in the trial, it was addressed at the time by people commenting on it or whatever. But it was like that was going to happen later. And it's like finally time for whatever, it was like domestic violence type stuff, right? Yeah, he is. Yeah, the fort was really amusing, but boy, I felt so bad for that judge. Ugh. Okay. So now we're going to go back to the
Understand something. The evidence will show. My client didn't know, nor did any of the officers know, that the shooter was gone. He slipped out, you will learn, through the west side door, the opposite side that he came in, and blended in and got away. So all the officers are thinking for quite some time that the shooter or shooters, and by the way, no one knew it was just one.
They thought
You'll hear from the officers saying there's the +1 rule. That if you think there's one, think that there may be two. If you think that there's three, there may be four. But here's what my client says. Do not approach the 12 or 1300 building. Stay at least 500 feet away at this point. You will get to decide why my client is including the 1300 building instead of just saying 1200 building. He's also saying, Perry, does he know where the shooter is? Asking in real time. Does he know where the shooter is?
So this is important because here's the thing. Part of this whole thing is when did people know what? Because it was all a fucking shit show. And even when people knew stuff that was being fucked up because of the radios not working and stuff, right? So, but a lot of this is, the reason this matters is because they have to prove when did Scott Peterson know certain things? And so because you can't mind read, the only way to do that is looking at his communications. So by his questions, right? Also, yeah, you guys are, so I'm trying to think, I fucking forgot about the pro se. So is he going to do that again? Tell me he's not going to, tell me he learned a lesson and he's not going to represent himself again. Please, please, please tell me he's going to use an attorney. I could see it being like a Sarah Boone situation where I could see that happening where he goes through a bunch because nobody can get along with them or vice versa or whatever, I could see it being, he had an attorney. Like I could see that. You guys see, like, wow, there's actually kind of a similarity, isn't there? When you think about the two of them, both thinking they're real smart. And Sarah Boone is like one step away from probably representing herself. A lot of people have said, and I mean, she comes across that way, right? Like in those most recent letters, like she went behind her attorney's back and like, what I mean is like, she could have actually had her attorney do something on her behalf, but she still did it on her behalf, even though she actually had somebody. Anyway, whatever. So no, let's not go there, please. That's my brain can't handle that nightmare thought. No. Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be crazy too that Rob Tellis is another good one. I think he's a little bit smarter than them, but he's still but that's not saying much. I mean, we're talking marginally. But having said that, he's still an idiot because he's representing himself. So there you go.
You will learn that the lead investigator, he will tell you that he left that out of his report because he didn't think that was relevant.
If they weren't stupid for representing themselves, we would definitely miss out on that. Let me rewind this real quick though, because what he just said was important, and I'm laughing over it. But yes, we get box forts. There's actually a channel who covers. I'm trying to remember which channel it is, but he has a whole episode dedicated to pro se, and it's like the title is like "He who representeth himself hath be an idiot" or something. I don't know. It's a really funny title, but it just talks about all the epic failures of people who do that.
He will tell you that he left that out of his report because he didn't think.
She's on like 13, I think now, Fender. It's way more. Let me write it again. Way more than that. She's like in double digits.
You will learn that the lead investigator, he will tell you that he left that out of his report because
Right.
he didn't think that was relevant. Lockdown, right now, nobody's leaving the school, my client says. And still, look at this time, 2:45:25. The shooter's been gone for 18 minutes. And my client is telling everybody, between the 12 and 1300 building is the last time we heard shots. Between the 12 and 1300 building. That's what all the officers heard, that's what they believed. Now I know you're wondering, didn't he get any information on his radio? Right?
Here we
You
go.
learn that
Guys.
kids had cell phones. You will learn that they did call in that there is a shooter, and that shooter's located in the 1200 building. But you will learn that those calls went to Coral Springs Police Department.
Oh, it looks like she's on her
Not
8th
Brian
lawyer,
Shannon.
actually. I thought it was double digits.
You will learn that nobody conveyed the information that went to Coral Springs Police Department with the Broward Sheriff's Office. You will learn that nobody ordered that the radios be patched so that two agencies who are supposed to be working together could know all the same information. You will learn that Coral Springs police officers knew certain information because those calls came in
This
to
is really
Coral
crucial.
Springs.
Yeah.
But that the Broward Sheriff's Office officers, like my
This is really crucial. And Ryan's just saying this is the first time he's actually mentioned this, and this is huge. This is what I was referring to, where all the calls were going to the wrong station. This is like, when you hear this, you're like, why are we here? Why are we here? This could have been prevented. I mean, oh, like, okay, let me rephrase that. You know, even with if the shooting happened and all that, right? If the radios worked properly, the outcome could have been a lot different. It's like if you're going to find someone else besides the shooter, you're trying to figure out what went wrong or whatever. How is this not the first place you look and try to either A, solve it, right? Or if your goal is to place blame on somebody, blame the sheriff. I mean, but this issue with the radios, it's like you hear this and you're like, why are we
who are
here?
supposed to be working together
I didn't go back far enough.
that went to Coral Springs Police Department with the Broward Sheriff's Office. You will learn that nobody ordered that the radios be patched so that two agencies who are supposed to be working together could know all the same information. You will learn that Coral Springs police officers knew certain information because those calls came in to Coral Springs. But that the Broward Sheriff's Office officers, like my client, you will see what they learned, and at no time did they ever inform him that there were shots fired inside the 1200 building and that children were being harmed. Even Sheriff Israel will come and tell you that that was a colossal failure
There you go.
that hindered my client. He will also admit to you that the radios that they were using failed miserably.
Get this. It
Meaning
gets worse, guys.
officers,
It gets
you will
worse.
will come in here and say that they were trying to communicate with fellow officers and that the radios were throttling.
That's
So when they
horrifying.
tried to make any type of announcement or hear things, they couldn't. It was, one officer will testify, it was like having a brick in your hand.
This is horrifying. This is why I'm saying the fault really. But when you think of this, now you can see why Sheriff Scott Israel threw Scott Peterson under the bus, right? Because the first issues all came down to the sheriff's office because A, they didn't patch the calls correctly. So what happened was all the information that was about the calls coming in to 911 all went to the Coral Springs Police Department, who weren't there. And on top of that, as if it couldn't get worse, the radios that they had, these officers that at the school, right, from the county, the officers, like he said, they would go to talk on it and it would make that sound. And I mean, but that's the issue that you hear about in the trial, where they had been reporting that for months and it hadn't been fixed. It was an ongoing issue that hadn't been fixed. Ugh.
Yeah, they have good training, you'll learn, but they never have training where their radios don't work. you will learn that officers will say, yeah, they have training, but they never have training where you have no idea where the shooter's located, just a general area. I have to mention Denise Reed, because the state still, they've read her name as somebody they might call. And if they do, I will tell you, this is an assistant principal who may testify, and she may tell you that during the shooting, allegedly, she got within 15 feet of my client and allegedly claimed, hey, there's shooting going on, whatever she's going to say. I don't know exactly what version she's going to give to you. But something like indicating that my client must have known then that shots were coming. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence will show that there is a video showing her movement down the hallway, and you will see for your own eyes that in spite of her giving that sworn testimony, that she had this contact with my client, she literally is walking without breaking stride and then goes into the band room and stays in there during the whole shooting. You can clearly see with your own eyes she never, ever had any contact with my client, in spite of what she may allege if the state calls her.
Yep. It's bad.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I want to briefly touch on the perjury count. Just for a moment.
Yeah. So, by the way, we never hear people get charged with perjury basically ever. I know, I'm trying to think, there was one time when we were talking about perjury, maybe during the Murdoch trial, and somebody actually knew someone who did get charged with perjury. Oh, I know who it was. It was Super Planner Girl, because she served on a jury and one of the charges was perjury. But it's like, that was the only time I've heard of it. And then this trial. But it's like, when you're talking about this situation where, you know, in this case where they're trying to, their goal is to get 96 and a half years by, you know, stringing together these different charges. And they're trying to the only way they can get there is by including these perjury charges. That should say something about the strength of their case. I mean,
Detective Curcio will testify that when my client came in for this interview, it was 2 days after the shooting. He wasn't under investigation at all. That didn't come until a year later with charges brought. So he comes in, and Detective Curcio was the detective in the Nicholas Cruz homicide case. So my client, being a witness, has to be investigated. My client wasn't on the hot seat at the time. My client had no reason to think that he was going to be in trouble at all. And specifically, Detective Curcio will tell you that he asked this in a chronological order. Like, okay, so when you got to the scene, you get to that building, how many shots do you hear? My client said 2 to 3, because it's exactly how many he heard. And we know that because the first shots he hears is Aaron Feist being shot. He was shot 2 to 3 times. That's the perjury count. Detective Curcio will tell you that he never then asks my client, how many total shots did you hear from beginning to end? He will tell you, yeah, I didn't think that question was necessary. That's the perjury count. The second part of the perjury count is they claim that my client saw some kids leave the 1200 building. While my client's on his radios, while he's telling kids in the 700 building, stay back, while he's doing about a million things with the stress of the world on his shoulders, the evidence will show that they're claiming my client didn't see kids running out of the 1200 building. I'm quite certain you will not see any video of those kids actually leaving. I would imagine if they're representing it that kids did leave the 1200 building. He told Detective Curcio he didn't see kids leaving the 1200 building. There will be no evidence that those kids ever came up to my client or had blood on them or something to indicate that they need to be spoken to or investigated. The evidence will show he didn't lie about that at all. Another charge for which he did not commit. Evidence will show that my client did not commit any of the offenses alleged. He was sacrificed and thrown under the bus. And the only verdict in this case, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your kind attention, the only verdict that speaks the truth in this case, based upon the evidence, is not guilty. Thank you.
all right. After 4 days of deliberation, Scott Peterson was acquitted of all charges. Yay! Yay, Mark. So Copper Horse, are you also Native American as well? I know. So let me think. I guess what you can do, Fender, is if you do hug singular, exclamation point, hug singular, and then you put everyone, it'll say you hug everyone. But we're all hugging everybody, so it's all good. Like if you do, yeah, exclamation point, hug, and then everyone, it'll say whoever you are that you're hugging everyone. The way I did it for Nightbot is I made it hugs plural for him to do it first person hugs. Let me pull this up so we can have this nice thing to look at here. Hold on, let me start it over. Okay, hold on. Here we go. Some nice bulges. I love India also, and I know I've told Fender this, but yeah, I've always wanted to go to India. It's been one of my things on my list that I've wanted to do, and so super jealous that Fender is there. So there you go, Fender. There it is. Yay! Success! Yay! Bravo! So what did you guys think? Did you think Mark Eiglarsh did a good job? Especially, I mean, like I said, he was like one man against the world, it felt like, during this trial, because he just, like I said, he didn't even have an assistant. It was nuts. I mean, you just never see that. But he did it all himself. And so but he was acquitted of all charges. And to my knowledge, Scott and his wife actually moved to North Carolina after the trial. So and it was really emotional too when the verdict came in, the way Mark just his heart and soul, he put his heart and soul in this, man. Because he had there was a real sense of purpose here, right? I mean, it's just, it means even more when you're like, yeah, these charges shouldn't have been brought. This person's wrongfully accused, and you just really put your heart into it. So, yeah, so there was a new filing in Idaho. Actually, there were a couple new filings, but 3 of them were just like, there was not anything really in it. It was just like signing off on stuff from the last hearing. But then there was one that was actually like worth maybe going over. Yeah, me too, Jessica. Me too. I cried like a baby. Yep. I was really nervous for the verdict, and I cried. I cried like a baby. That was a really big moment for me, because I was really invested in that. And, because the odds are always that people are going to get found guilty. Actually, wifey and I were just talking about that. Like, the odds are, just statistically speaking, typically people will be found guilty. For better or for worse, regardless of anything, that's just the way it is. And so, it's the odds are usually, even though there should be a presumption of innocence, statistically, the odds are against you if you're like, yeah, it should be not guilty. So it's nerve-wracking. Yeah, I know, right, Fender? That's a good question, wifey, triple R wifey. So yeah, there's been one document so far that I've seen that I'll probably go over. And I don't know when I'll do that, but yeah, so there's always stuff happening around here with all these different trials. So and Fender, since I know you've been missing, so we're doing a deep dive into the Gloria Satterfield situation, and I've also been I just started covering Brian Koberger, and I'm doing all the court documents, and I guess I think I'll be doing all the hearings as well. So, and then later I'll be doing a deep dive into Chad Daybell. So, wow, there's a lot of variety there, Copper. Wow. Wow. Wow, do you like the cold, Fender? Norway or Iceland? Yeah, there are a lot of, I do know that there's a lot of diversity in Canada, from what I understand. I haven't been there, but I've heard that from people. Actually, when I was growing up, we had neighbors across the street that's probably where I heard it. We had neighbors across the street that were Canadians, but they got like a long-term visa due to work. And so like they lived across the street from us for like 10 years or something, long time. But the kids were the same age as my brother and I. So we were like tight with them and they were Canadian. Anyway, they had this snack they used to have, like when the kids would come home from school, like, like an after school snack. And they would have saltine crackers and they would put a little bit of butter on it and then brown sugar. So it was like butter and brown sugar, I believe. I think that's what it was. And I've never seen or heard of that from anywhere. I don't know if it's a Canadian thing. Hi, tennis girl. Happy to see you. Awesome. Happy that you enjoyed it and happy you're here. Vendor loves the cold. Wow, that's incredible. You don't meet people often in life, I feel like, that love the cold. I don't anyway. What is bopple? Bopple. Boople. Beep bop boop boop. Nightbot sounds. Wifey says she can't think about vocabulary. So yeah. So I think I applied. Oh, you're still talking about the visas. Yeah. Oh, a city you visited in India. Oh, cool. Okay, got it. Yeah, it's tough to get a visa to come here. I know someone who's been working up for years on trying to do that. Y'all are so funny. I don't know if you guys play the draw with friends game, but I just started playing that because wifey told me about it. And that's fun. I'm the worst drawer of all time. Well, you guys know. You've seen my squirrels. So yeah, I hope to go to India. I really want to go to India and I want to go to Bali and New Zealand. And I'm putting together I wanted to show you guys, I was going to do it today, but I think I'll do it on the next stream. I wanted to show you guys some pictures and do like a little tour of Boone. And I could maybe that'd be a good time to do the tow truck story. To show you all that and stuff. Yeah, Draw with Friends. It's an app, a free app. Yes. Yeah, there's a lot. There are ads. Yeah. But it's like 5 seconds. Oh, you have a tourist visa for the States? That's awesome. Wow. Yeah, wifey, did you do, I sent you one. Did you respond to that? I haven't checked, but. Oh, no, you're not missing anything. It's a Squinguin. Yeah, so that, it's the Squinguin. So the story behind Squinguin, for anyone who missed it, and I'll pause it. Well, actually, it's going to be a second here. Let me just go back. I'll just go back. There we go. All right. So the story behind the Squinguin is that, I know it's not the Murdoch saga right now, but whatever. Oh, okay. I haven't seen it, wifey. So the story behind Squinguin is that my boyfriend from freshman, did you get it without a hint, wifey? I'm just curious. So my boyfriend from freshman year of college, shout out to Corbin Linebarrier, who will probably never see this live stream. And he was really good at a lot of things, including graphic design and stuff. And anyway, because squirrels, obviously you guys know, but penguins are one of my favorite animals also. And pineapples are like one of my favorite things too. Like it's like my favorite fruit, but also I just love pineapples. So I think they're cute. So like, I have I have a lot of squirrel, I wouldn't say a lot, but like when people want to like, I have like squirrel stuff or like I have penguin stuff or like pineapple stuff, like sometimes. So anyway, but he made this for me, this Squinguin with the pineapple. And I don't know how I managed to keep this because this was a million years ago. And back then, I don't even know how things were saved. Like formatting was different. I don't even know if I had a computer. Somehow, though, I have managed to keep a digital, like this picture. Like I still have this picture, like digital. Like I don't even know how that happened, but I must have made every effort to not lose it because it's the best picture of all time, and I know I'll never be able to replace it. And it was, made special, like, and so I've made this Squinguin has been involved in all kinds of stuff. I mean, I added, like, the original picture doesn't have the speech bubble. I added that, but anyway, I've always, everywhere I've lived, I would print out a picture of it, and, like, tape it to the wall, for example, like in college. I mean, like, I've literally always kept this as a part of my life. And I just love it so much because hybrid animals are the best. And B, these are some of my favorite animals, and C, it's just really cute. And I just love it. And there's certainly nothing like it on the internet for sure. So all I can think about is what we used to call Lenore. So in North Carolina, there's a town called Lenore, and it's spelled like this. And actually, Super Planner Girl, who's not here tonight, she is familiar with this. But it's close to Boone. It's like kind of in between like Boone and Hickory, so mountainy area. But Lenore is not like the best town. It's like there's not a lot of opportunity there. I'm gonna try not to be mean and like say bad things. But, like, it's not a place you would like move to per se. But every now and again, we'd have gigs, music, weddings and stuff, and we'd have to drive through Lenore to get to Hickory. You never really went to Lenore. You always went like through Lenore. But, whenever we were, like quartets, so we'd be riding together or whatever. It was just the running joke for us with the music majors that we would make this joke with Lenore. I'm going to put it on the screen. We would make this joke and we would say, because it wasn't fancy, right? It was like not a fancy town. It's like the opposite, right? So we would make this joke and we would say, Lenoir, as the French say. Like no one calls, because they're not French and they don't call it that. So anyway, that's what I thought of, wifey, with what you were saying. Yeah, I don't know how we add each other to the drawing thing, because I'm brand new to this. I don't know how did I add? Oh, you have to do a code. Remember that, wifey? Yes, I'm sharing it with you guys. And yeah, eating a pineapple. Exactly. Yeah. So because, right, the idea is like usually, so when I draw my squirrel, let me see if I can pull that up actually. The squirrel that I draw, it's my one thing that I draw. Not well. I'm not saying well, you guys know. Hold on. Oh, I must have pulled it down. So it's the one, the drawing one. It's an emoji in Discord, you guys know. But I always draw it with an acorn, and it's always facing that direction. I can't draw it the other direction. It has to face that same direction. So he made it facing the same direction as the one I draw, right? And the way that I always draw it with like a terrible looking acorn that you wouldn't know it's an acorn, except I'm telling you, so he replaced the acorn with a pineapple. So you see, so that's because the original squirrel that he took it from had squirrel arms, not penguin arms, and it was holding an acorn. So that's how that is going. Bye, Fender. Love you. Hope you have a great day. Yeah, we have to give each other a code. I wish it would just let you do it through contacts or whatever. Yeah. Okay. So I wonder. I'll see if I can figure out how to add you on there too, Jessica. Yeah, the Squinguins are prevalent in North Carolina for sure. So I hate to say this, you guys. I actually have a lesson. I have to get ready to go. Because I have students on the West Coast where it's earlier. But it worked out well because we actually finished the stream up with everything we planned to do, which is good. So I would have hated to have to try to cut short in the middle of the opening statement. So yeah, but we can always continue discussing how to work out the drawing on using Discord, right? So Tennis Girl 101, she's been listening past couple streams. I love her. If you're still listening, just shout out to Tennis Girl 101, whether you're listening right now or not. But I just love her, and she's been letting me know that she's been listening. So she's been here in her heart, even if she's not in the chat. And Black Widow, I believe, also potentially. That's right, lurking. I believe Black Widow potentially also is either lurking or maybe is going to be replay crew. Well, I typed what you typed. I meant to type lurk, but I'm glad you heard what I said, Tennis Girl. So yeah, there we go. Yeah, my student that I have, dude, I'll tell you guys real quick. The student that I have over here that I'm going to be teaching in just a second, she's real funny. She's an adult in a little child's body, basically. She's super, super, super smart, but she is also very, very, very mature, and did not grow up in a religious family at all, and had never heard of Mormonism, doesn't know anything about church or whatever, but she loves learning about the trials. So every time I see her, and she'll do it tonight, I guarantee you guys she'll do it tonight. She'll be like, so what's new with all your cases? And she knows all of them. She knows Brian Koberger. She knows what happened in Idaho. And when it got to the point where Chad's trial was starting, I was like, fuck, how am I going to summarize this to her? She's like, A, how do you summarize it, period? B, how do you summarize it for a 6-year-old or whatever, right? So I'm like, okay, have you ever heard of Mormonism? And she's like, no. And I'm like, I don't even know how to try to describe this, but I did my best. And I did, imagine, right? I'm describing the light and dark and the zombies and all this. And there's so much stuff that makes no sense to anybody, right? And so then at the very end, I'm trying to explain, and then she goes, so let me get this straight. She goes, so these two people, they met and they murdered each other, and the best they could do to come up with excuses was to call people zombies. She was like, where's the creativity in that, or something? She was like, even a kindergartner wouldn't believe that. It was so funny. She's like, she understood. She understood it right away. Like she gets the case. Like she's got it. Like she's already figured out the questions that adults are still asking. In other words, she's amazing. And so that's why I love kids. And so she knows. The only one she doesn't know about yet really is Murdoch, because I do not know how to summarize that case to anybody. I just don't know how to do it. And I always try to be reasonable too, right? Because it's our lesson time. So I try to it's with Murdoch, for anybody, I don't care what age they were. If they're like, oh, they've never heard of it, how can you summarize that? Well, how many years do you have? In all seriousness. So, no, literally, I'm pretty sure I pretty much said that, in not exactly, because I'm trying not to I don't want her to have a bad view of Mormonism without her having any context. You know what I mean? Because but in so many words, yes, I have done that. Okay, I've made it clear that Mormonism itself isn't bad, and really there's whatever, but I made it clear that I tried to make it really clear, and she understood that they're taking it to an extreme. And she's so smart. She's like, yeah, nothing's good in extremes. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, you get it. So I made it clear that they kind of took that and made it more, and then I explained the prepping, and I tried to make sure that I explained that there are people that are involved in this prepping situation, that there's a lot of bad things that tend to happen. And there's been other cases, and that these people seem to be tied to Mormonism, but having taken it to an extreme or whatever. So I've explained it. She's got all that. She knows about the tents, I think she knows who Julie Rowe is, since, NDEs, the whole shebang. She knows the Lori's already, convicted. She knows she's awaiting trial in Arizona. Yeah. And so she knows, so every trial that I've been watching, which, I mean, there's I can't even keep track. There's been so many, right? But she knows all the trials. The portals is the thing they made up so that they could be we're gonna, I mean, how do you explain this? That's a good question. And I explained the portals to her. I just don't even remember how I did it. But I think I said they made portals in their closets as a way to try to pretend they could visit each other. And she was like, that is so dumb. Who would even believe that? And I'm like, yeah, good point. They are dumb. They are, they're adults. But, yeah, they go into that's right. That's exactly it. They go into the closet. And if you guys haven't seen the thumbnail I made, that's exactly right. The doctrine is really twisted. Yes. And I try to be careful if I'm going to be, anyway, explaining it to a child. But yes, the doctrine is that's exactly right. I think so kids that are so smart like that, I think it's like she understands without me having to say it. You know what I mean? Yeah, it is. But let me Jessica, have you seen a thumbnail I made for whenever I cover Chad? Let me put it in the Discord if I can, because it is, it's just great. And I replaced the Ada County courthouse doors. I replaced them with closet portal doors. Let me put it in the Discord for you guys, since you guys are listening to me and you can go look. It's amazing. It should be coming up here in just a sec. So I replaced the real court doors with portal doors. And then there's other funny things I did there, but in terms of portal doors, there you go. And then of course there's a portal behind him. And then I changed Visions of Glory to Visions of Glory. That was the hardest. That was the hardest thing of this to do, to get it to match the font and to look like it was actually there on the book. That was really hard to do. Yeah, 100% though. I agree with everything you're saying, Wifey. And you know that I'm aware of that. I mean, it's oh, I didn't know that about the CIA, but it is. What's the reason? Are you asking me or are you asking Wifey for a reason for something? But it's clear that there's a programming that happens that makes people more prone to, and maybe perhaps more vulnerable or likely, in other words, they could be more vulnerable or susceptible to being taken advantage of, or then they could also be more likely to commit certain crimes. So, okay. Yeah. So you're asking Wifey. Yeah. So there's something that goes on with that that needs to be looked into for sure. I mean, and this is like what I said to my student who's asking about it. I'm like, just looking at the portion of the number of cases that we follow that have something to do with the Mormon church, and the percentage is like high. It's kind of insane. No, it's a Chad thing. From what I mean, the portal thing is a Chad and Lori thing, from my understanding. It might be mentioned in the book Visions of Glory. Maybe. I don't recall. Do you recall, Wifey? But I don't think it's Mormon, the portal. Ah, thank you, Copper. I forgot I made that. Thank you, Copper. I forgot I made that for Chad. Got all the themes there. But yeah, the thumbnail should be in the Discord too, for anyone that wants to go look if you haven't seen it. Yeah. It's really scary stuff. Scientology also too, right? But like, it seems like there's more people that are in, like, Mormonism has more people, so that would make it more dangerous. I guess the Scientology thing, like, you have to be rich, and like, it's like whatever, exclusive or something. I need, like, one of you guys, I hope one of you guys someday gets an orchid so I can have someone to talk about orchids with. Yeah, did you guys see the closet portal doors? That's like that's such a fun part of that. Again, I always try to make it subtle. It's like these things that you maybe wouldn't notice unless someone points. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the doors are pretty subtle, and you wouldn't know. Like if y'all look up a regular Ada County courthouse picture, you'll see that those are the exact doors. Like they're the exact size. I literally replaced them with the closet portal doors, so they're these. That makes it look like you could miss it. You know what I mean? I know I have a lesson. Okay, yeah, you got to get an organ. Okay, yeah. So, I will talk to y'all soon. I hate that I don't have a stream tomorrow, but I'm not gonna have time. I've got lessons, and it's time for bed for Jessica M. So, but I hopefully will get to see y'all. It's gonna be weird because now I streamed every day this week, so it's like what, a day not streaming? Like what the heck? Which is like crazy. So, but hopefully I'll be able to see y'all on Monday. But I'll talk to y'all in the Discord, and you guys are awesome. I love everybody on rewatch crew. Shout out to everybody that is lurking or replay. I'm so happy to see some of our friends again that we haven't seen in a while, and that everyone's doing good. And everyone's hugging everybody, which is awesome. We're all learning, hopefully. But yeah, y'all are awesome. It's just good vibes, and I just appreciate it so much. Just for fun, one more time. There we go. Wait, we need the mannequin. He'll be here in a sec, because then it's complete. The picture is complete. There he is. Yay! What a picture! What a picture! One last thing, just to make it. Hold on. You're welcome, guys. I'm happy to do it. And I'm just happy that you guys are here. There we go. That is a thing of beauty right there. That is a thing of beauty. And in case you guys can't see it because it's so small, the shrimp weasel is on the tractor, just like before, just like always. So I love all of you guys. And I hope y'all have a wonderful night / morning / day / weekend, rest of your weekend. And I hate to say bye, but I do have to go. So I love you guys again. And one more for the road of
It's a house.
and I will see y'all very soon. Love you guys.